got history, yeah. And when you're alone, do you say my name or you say her name? Yeah. My love, it grows with the memories like a symphony. And you and I, we got history, yeah. Wherever love flows, there is also tragedy. When we're in too deep, and you and I, we got history, yeah.
Hello, and welcome. So I don't normally stream today, but I feel like it's something that's gotta be done. So if you weren't aware, the patch notes for League, the new patch notes, 14.2 patch notes, have been shown, and once again, lo and behold, Wukong is not getting any sort of buffs, any sort of adjustments. He's been in a poor state now for going on close to 8 months. I believe it's been 8 months, 7 months, 8 months. So 13.14 was when we had the last nerf, which was July 19th. So that is, let's see. Yeah, 7 months, nearly 8 months now. Yeah, exactly. It's just shocking, honestly. Like I've tried to be patient with Riot. Yeah, And don't forget, I'm a jungle player, right? So I don't know what runes you take top in terms of like the mini runes. I'm going to assume you usually take MR, but if you're against quite a AD heavy comp, or someone like Darius, for example, you probably take the armor rune. I generally take the MR rune like 90% of the time, unless I'm going into a full AD team. And the mini runes are being changed in 14.2, so you will no longer be able, like, the second rune and the third rune are changing. So you can pick, for the second rune, you'll be able to pick scaling health, move speed, or adaptive damage. And the third rune is base, just flat 60 health, scaling health, or tenacity. So a lot of champions that are like reliant on, yeah, I thought so. I kind of feel like it's going to mess up Wukong though, because like, let me switch scenes so we can kind of like get onto like the bread and butter of this. So, if we go to his patch history, right? Actually, we'll go here first. So right now, right, you've got 31 base armor and 28 base MR, which is insanely low for bruisers. I believe there's only one other bruiser that's got 28, which is Pantheon. And armor, they generally have more. Patch note wise, Wukong did used to have more, even after the rework. Let me just find it. So it's up here somewhere. Base region. I think it was changed quite early on, to be honest. Let me check. Yeah, no, that's the durability patch. See, they did a lot of stuff with the regen as well. Here we are, base armor. So he was at 34 armor before, and they reduced it to 31, which it basically makes the passive kind of like less relevant than it should be. They also, prior to that, reduced it, so because it used to go 5 to 11, and now it's 5 to 9. So you used to be able to have a max of 66, which is, it's a lot to be fair. Because let me tab over quickly. So a chain vest gives you 40 armor, and a cloth armor gives you 15. So you're looking at nearly a chain vest and 2 cloth armors worth. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, they're essentially putting him in this situation where he's in pro jail because they forced his kit to be played this way. Because I don't know who here has played Wukong like pre rework. I for one did. Hey, welcome. So, pre rework, you had AD scaling on your E. Your Q wasn't a spammy. Your Q was basically your secondary leveling skill. You primarily maxed your E first. There was I think it was season 5, if I remember correctly. You had the option of going like Q or E first. But then they started to nerf the Q damage. So let me switch to this one. So they nerfed his Q base and scaling, so it was 100. It was 10 to 130. So generally, you maxed his E first, which was 65 to 205. Hey, how's it going? How's it going? Um, so like they just basically put you in a situation where your Q did like no damage up until, like, you needed 2 points in Q to do the damage, and now it's like it doesn't have damage in my opinion. Um, like it's only 10. It's 10 more than it was before. It is. It is. um, where was we? Yeah, so on the patches, so when we got the rework originally, it was here. So he, so to me, the rework was like a nerf anyway. Um, it was like a blanket rework to look good, but it was actually a nerf if you actually break it down. So stat wise, you lost 4 MR. Health wise, you lost 30. Mana increased, which yeah, he had mana problems, so he kind of needed that. Mana growth increased, which was good. Health regen went down by 1. Base mana regen went down by 0.042. Yeah. And this, so a fun fact is as well, this base health regen was actually because with the second version of the rework they were trying to push, where he had the, I don't know if you remember, but the second version, you got a shield when you walked into a bush or when you went invisible. They reduced his health to compensate for that buff, for that passive. So he lost 30 base health for it, and then we never got that health back. Like when they tried to rework the second, sorry, when the we're on the third version of the rework, which is what we got now. They actually just never gave it back. Yeah, they just didn't. So we lost 30 health. We lost 4 MR. We got some mana regen. We got some mana growth. We lost some health regeneration. Um, the like I think the original, like the reworked passive wasn't bad when we first got it, because it was 5 to 11 bonus armor and 0.5% health per 5. You got an increase of 62.5 for 5 seconds whenever you dealt damage, and it stacked up to 8 times. It's now 10 times, and it's like 50% value. So it takes you longer to stack your passive. You get less overall value out of your passive now anyway. The Q damage went down. Sorry, it was increased, but now it's like even less than it was. So like, obviously level 1 you've got 10 more than you used to have, but you've got 10 less than you used to have. The AD ratio went from 50% bonus AD to 0 to 40% total AD. I think so it's now 45%, so that's been reduced again. So we lost damage here. They also, so to me, like, yeah, it was changed to flat. So it was a 50% flat bonus AD with the rework, and then they've reduced it to 45% now. So we lost 5% on top of the damage going to 20 to 120. I'm pretty sure this works out as more though, like 40% total AD versus 50% bonus AD. I'm pretty sure it works out more. That was because of Assassin Wukong. So when Assassin Wukong was dominating, they didn't know how to deal with him. So they wanted to reduce his early burst, because obviously you used to go EWQ, E was your first max, and Q was your second max. And what they decided to do instead was just reduce his damage. They like nerfed his damage all over, and I think they tried to reduce his MR as well, but it didn't really do much. I can't remember. I'm not going to look at W, because W was like a massive change completely from the original version. Nimbus Strike, it lost not only, so it got a bit more damage, right? So you got 15 more damage essentially at level 1, and 23 35, no, 25, sorry, at last level, but you lost 80% bonus AD scaling. So, yeah, you basically lost all your damage off your E. And it used to have 30 to 50% attack speed on a 4 second cooldown. 4 second duration. It went to 40 to 65. It's now, I believe, 35 to 55. So it's 5% more than it used to be. So we've essentially we got a buff and then got it nerfed. It's so crazy. And then obviously the ult. The ult used to be the joint first highest AD scaling ult in the game, and now you don't do damage. Let's be honest. Even though it's 8% per second, so you're doing what, 16% if you stay on them for the 2 seconds and then do it again. It doesn't matter. You're not doing damage. There's not really damage there. And then this, so if we go to, I think it was after the durability patch, we just got hit with nerf after nerf. It was definitely in 10 point something. Yeah, he will do, because your ult doesn't do damage anymore. They're trying to make it so I get they're trying to make your ult a pure utility skill for team fights, which is perfectly fine, but he's got no damage elsewhere in his kit. If you're gonna make it so his ult doesn't do damage, he needs that damage moved elsewhere in his kit, which just isn't the case. Like I said, the rework was just a straight out nerf. The only buff you actually got, because I don't even class the W as being better than the original W, because at the end of the day, the original W was an escape tool, an engage tool, and pure utility for confusing your opponent. And now it's an escape tool, an engage tool, and also a heavily required attack steroid. Because let's face it, if you're not dropping your W in a fight, you're probably not going to kill someone one-on-one, because you're heavily reliant on the clone queuing, auto-attacking and queuing as well. It's not, I wouldn't even consider it a buff, because you got to remember you're losing 80% scaling. When was it now? Yeah, so pretty much like straight away it got hot fixed anyway. So there was a hot fix where his armor and health was lower than intended. That's just bug fixes. Base health regen reduced to 4. So we not only went from 6, we went to 4. Number of stacks increased to 10, so we got 2 more stacks, so it was longer to stack the passive. Warrior Trickster, mana cost changed, so it was scaling mana, and clone damage went to 40 to 60. It's actually lower than that now as well, so the clone damage now is 35 to 55. So the clone's essentially the clone's doing 35% damage most of the game, which is like nothing, because you're not gonna max W second. Technically you should, because you don't really get value out of the E anymore, but E is still, it's your gap closer, it's your engage, and it's your attack steroid. Yeah, so that got nerfed. We then got another nerf, the next patch, which hit his passive and hit Nimbus, but they made it so you could buffer W and R during E. 10.9, so 2 patches later, we got another nerf and another nerf and another nerf. 10.10 bug fix. 10.14, we got another nerf. 10.23, we got mana growth, which, yeah, we needed. 10.25, they added the bonus damage to monsters, which, let's be honest, bonus damage to monsters is problematic. It's something that shouldn't be in the game for any champion, in my opinion. It's not healthy for the game. And like, yeah, like you saw, like, it's literally the reason that Wukong is in the state he's in now, because they pushed it so much on him, and he didn't need it. He just, like, if they just gave his E like 20% bonus AD scaling, you would have had the same effect without being so problematic. Stone skin. Yeah, so I think it was for a good 2 patches. We actually didn't get the passive armor and regen. It was only the stacks you got. So they fixed that. I just skipped the bug fixes because it's irrelevant stuff. We got an attack damage growth nerf. We got AD bonus nerf. Base health, we went down to the joint lowest with Soraka. So that was great. So this is the thing as well. Like, to me, a passive should be something that complements your kit, not something that replaces it. And the way they treat Wukong's passive is to replace his kit. Like, he lost armor because of it, and then he lost more armor because of it. He lost regen because of it, and then he lost more regen because of it. What's the sense in giving him a passive to boost his armor and regen if you're gonna nerf his armor and regen in the process? It just defeats the point, in my opinion. Damn. So then they pushed AP ratio up on the Nimbus for some reason, and increased the monster damage to 180%. Crushing blow. I think this was the first time he actually got a buff since his rework. Yeah, this was where they reduced the cooldown of Warrior Trickster and gave it the dash over terrain, which he should have had, to be honest. Cooldown got reduced. The gate, like, I don't understand why they pushed the AP ratio up though, because no one is building AP. People tried it. Yeah, well, it's just a flat amount. It's essentially 0%. Even though it says like 180%, it's actually just 80% extra on top of your regular damage. So like, this was when the problems started to happen after the nerfs. We got the durability patch, so we went up a bit. Still could have used a bit of extra armor and MR, but yeah, we didn't get anything. Cooldown then went to 22 seconds to 12 seconds. I think it's now, let me just check. I think it's 22 to 14 now. So they nerfed it again later on. And reduced the monster damage, because this was when he was starting to be picked up in pro play in 12.11. Bug fix. Monster damage got nerfed again as a hot fix. Cooldown of the ult got increased because obviously pro play, people playing around his ult, they're a pre-made 5-man. They're gonna compromise on a 5-man knock-up, double knock-up. Then we got hit with another nerf. Sorry. Wow, it's kind of a bit. It is a nerf. They buffed it to 3.5, but then they reduced it to 0.35%. So you're just kind of defeating the point of the buff, essentially. You're going, here's a buff, but we're also going to reduce this, which gives you more regen anyway. So we're losing more regen to get a tiny bit back. It's a void buff. Base movement speed reduced, attack speed reduced. That's another nerf. Um, we got a buff here, which was just a slight damage increase. To our ult, which, yeah, it's nothing. Our ult doesn't do damage. I think the only time I personally feel like my ult does damage is if someone's like low HP already, or it's like level 6 in the game. Yeah. Then we lost some attack damage. The cooldown got increased. Bonus attack speed got reduced. Monster damage went to 0. Yeah. Um. Then we got the latest. The last thing we got was the mana buffs, which, let's be honest, have done fuck all for us. Like, I said it when they announced it. It does nothing for us having extra mana because it doesn't. It's just a band aid. It's not fixing any of his problems. So yeah. So the main purpose of the stream today is I want to make a list of um people's concerns with Wukong and people's suggestions. So I want to start a bit with my what I think the main issues are. So there's three things, if I can type. So there's three things that I think are the issue. Sustain's number one, damage is number two, and the R is number three. So I think right now he doesn't feel like he's got sustain. Especially if you're against an AP champion. Like right now, if I'm like I said, I don't play top lane, but if you're playing top lane, you 100% are gonna take the AP the MR mini rune. It does 0 and top. Yeah, yeah. So essentially, you're heavily reliant right now if you into an AP pick to take the MR rune. The MR rune's going in 14.2, so we're going to be left with 28 MR. So that's not great. Armor wise, double knockup being removed. Yeah. I want that too. So sustain isn't great. The regen's gone down. The armor's gone down. Like in his core stats, they've gone down in his passive as well, and we haven't been compensated elsewhere. Like we've essentially got hit with nerfs for an entire season before we got one buff, which was on mana. Damage. He has one damage skill in the kit. You can say that the R scales off damage, but realistically, it's fuck all damage. You're not gonna 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna kill someone with this unless they're like super low, or like I said, it's like level 6. After that, it does like next to no damage, and you're spending most of the time using your ult to just get the double knock up off. That is what happens. That is how it goes for Wukong. Keeps him kneecapped. Yeah. Well, I want to get onto this. So basically, low MR. Let me just expand this. Low MR, passive armor / regen nerfed. So for damage, like I said, one damage skill. No scaling on E. Damage nerfs to Q. So that's my main issues with his damage. So he's got one damage skill, which is Q. Um, He's got no scaling on his E, so he lost. Because you've got to think, right? It's always going to be give or take with a rework or with a buff. There's got to always be some leeway when it comes to like a champion's kit's power. So if I'm losing 80% of my damage scaling on my E, that damage needs to be moved elsewhere. It hasn't been moved elsewhere. We just straight up lost the 80% damage. If it was like our Q went to like 220% total AD scaling, I'd understand. I'd be fully on board with the Q spam, but it hasn't. You've lost damage on your Q. You've lost your entire damage on your E, and your R has lost damage as well. So the only way you're actually doing damage right now is through Q spam, auto attacks, and through your items that you pick. Um. So yeah, and then on top of that, the Q got damage nerfs anyway. It went down to. Hey, thanks for the hydrate. Got myself a drink just in case. Yeah, so the Q got nerfed anyway. So it was 10 to what was it? 10 to 140 damage plus 40% total AD, and now it's 40%, 45% bonus AD with 20 to 120. No, it was 10 to 130. Yeah, sorry. So it's 10 less damage than it used to be late game, and 10 more early. But then you lose out because you've got 5% total AD, 5% total AD less. Well, technically it works out more because like total AD you get more AD. Oh yeah, 100%. I think I do want to. So I will get to W as well, because I've got a lot I want to say about the W. But with the R, we'll talk about the R. So the R, it's not healthy for the game. 100%, it is not healthy for the game. In my opinion, you need to reduce it to one charge. It's it's not healthy. The double knock up isn't healthy for the game. No one wants the double knock up. We don't want the double knock up. Other players don't want the double knock up. Pro players abuse the double knock up. Riot wants the double knock up. Why? No one wants it other than Riot and Pro. And it's only used and abused in Pro because it's a double knock up. Yeah. But that's not necessarily got to be like raw damage, right? As a top laner, you can easily get that power through sustain or through cooldown reduction on skills. It's not necessarily just like a flat here's 20 extra scaling on your Q. Like you could be better at trades thanks to having higher armor and higher MR and better regen. You could be better at that because your cooldowns are faster. There's a lot you've got to kind of like take into account because it's not just going to be, it's not just going to be damage that you want. There's plenty of ways to improve a kit without it being damage. So with the E, sorry, not the E, W. Right, the W. In my opinion, the W is actually a downgrade. It's a bit controversial, but I think the W is a downgrade from the original. Like, to me, the W was simple. It was a mechanic designed to distract your enemy temporarily. It was used to maneuver about. You had a 1.5 second stealth. You could move slightly with it. It was more for repositioning, confusing the enemy. You could bait quite nicely with the stop key. That's what it was. And then, yes, it's nice having the dash, but that's something they could keep without giving us the attacking clone. So right now, let me just bring this up. So I did have a look earlier, but it's not actually showing. So I just want to go here quickly. So on Wild Rift, I don't know if you're aware, but on Wild Rift, they're actually changing the clone. So what the clone's going to be able to do. Okay, so why don't you want one charge of the ult? I think that the problem with not having one charge of the ult is it holds back the rest of his kit. If they did something to make the ult better, I think two charges could be good. But it's essentially like to me, like if you've got two charges of the ult, it's not healthy for the kit because all it's got so much power in that double knock up, and you could say keep two charges but have it so they can only be knocked up once, but then you're gonna have a second charge of your ult that's not doing much damage, that it's not really doing anything. It's just less damage for like 2 seconds. That because you lost the move speed as well with the rework, because you used to have 10 to 40% move speed from it's stacked up to the 40%, and now it's a flat 20%. And personally, I can't feel that 20%. I don't know where they've put it, but it does not feel like I'm moving 20% faster. I mean, yeah, I could understand like having double, like if there was damage in, like that's the thing. If they removed the double knockup but it was damage, I could understand. Um, but I don't see them doing that. I think it would be more logical and more likely that they'd remove a charge and then just up the damage slightly, which I think is probably the best way we can go around this. Um, Base stat bus, same. E scaling to. So I think like if we break it down to like the simplest core of like what would make Wukong good right now without making him too overloaded or too strong, would be they need to start with some reverts of the nerfs, right? So mainly on the stats and mainly on the passive. So the health regen on the passive, it needs to go back to 3% minimum. Like the 2.1, no one is noticing that. I mean, 3% we're not really noticing either, but it's better. It feels better to have 0.5% per 5 than 3.5% per 5. Um, the stat wise, the same with the regen. I think it needs to go back to 5. Was it 5 when the rework came out? Yeah, it needs to go back to 5 because you can't feel the regen now. Not in the early game. Um, the armor needs to be, like I said, 34. I've just seen it as well. I've just gone past it. Armor needs to go back to 34 because all you've done is you've took a passive that buffs the armor, and then you've reduced his base armor to compensate. So now his passive is just there to like make up for his shitty stat that you've created. Like buff his armor to 34, put his MR to 32 as well. There was the thing with the rework, right? Is they did it because Assassin Wukong was so problematic, and they hit him with like a bunch of MR nerfs. Like obviously, you got to think he had 32 base MR in mid lane, and then on top of that, if because of his old passive, let me bring it up. So his old passive used to give him 4 to 8 bonus armor and magic resist for every nearby enemy champion, every visible nearby enemy champion. So in the mid lane, in the laning phase, he would have 36 MR, and then you'd rush a Hex Drinker, and then go Merc Treads, and the mid lane would not be able to do anything. And he's got an on hit target dash, he's got an armor reduction skill, and he's got a knock up that did a lot of damage back in the day. So they needed to nerf his MR, right? But the way they did it was not how they should have done it, right? I understand removing it from the passive, but we didn't need to lose the 32. I think they need to give us 32 back, because it's not a huge amount of difference, especially because you're gonna be building MR late game, but it gives you that early game little extra that helps in the laning phase. And with the MR rune going, you're not really gonna be in a 9 times out of 10, if you're top lane with Wukong, you're going to have to probably rush MR. You're gonna have to rush a Hex Drinker or Merc Treads or something, just to stay relevant in lane into like an AP matchup. It's just not. It's not good. It's not good for him. So I think he needs to go back to 32 MR. He needs to go back to 34 armor. The regen put back to 5/5. The passive regen put back to the 3% and 5%, and then just give us some AD scaling on E. That to me would be the easiest way to fix him. So let me just write that down. So passive. Let me just bring this up. Obviously, feel free to make your own suggestions as well, and I'll discuss them and write them down. Those stats. MR 28 to 32. Armor 31 to 34. Regen. I think it's 4, is that right now for regen? Or is it 3? Let me just check. Regen. Oh, he's 3.5. So he's still quite low on regen. 3.5 to 5. Passive. Thing is, yeah. Well, that's why I'm suggesting the E as well, because I think a lot of us either want we want more damage somewhere in his kit, right? Because his damage is problem. He doesn't have good damage. He's got 1 damage skill, and I think a lot of us would either be okay with his Q getting more damage, and we just play around the Q spam, or it'll be giving E AD scaling, which would then give us the option of maxing E first as well, like we used to. Because realistically, we're in the same spot we were pre-rework, where you didn't really have damage in your kit, and you was kind of picking between the two, and you wasn't really getting much attack speed from it. You wasn't really getting much. No, the armor reduction stayed the same, didn't it? Let me check. Yeah, armor reduction was the same, but yeah, you didn't have much damage in your Q. Your E, you didn't really have much attack speed from it. And now, with the nerfs, they've kind of put us in the same boat that we was in. It was in before. So passive. 0.35 to 0.5 rocket. Because you got to think as well, right now, we're getting, we're not even, we we're just about getting 2% at 10 stacks, which is crazy because you've got to think it's health per 5, right? Per 5 seconds. It's not health per second. And it falls off after 5 seconds. So if you're not consistently fighting someone, you're going to get one tick of the health at that. And it's not much, let me tell you that. Like, so say you've got 3,000 health, which is it's about average for Wukong, I think, late game. So 3,000, and you get one tick of 2.1%, right? It's 63 health. You get 63 health back for one tick of your passive at max stacks if you've got 3,000 health. So yeah, it's fuck all. Um, I don't even think like I think with the armor of the passive, I think it's fine as it is. It's not a lot, but if they gave us yeah, if they gave us the stats back, the armor back to 34 instead of 31, I think that's enough to buff his armor to like a nice amount. Um, and the same with his MR. If they put it back to 32, I think we'll be in a nice spot for AP, like against AP, and then just up in the regen as well. Um, and then E. So personally, I'd like to have E having AD scaling. Um, as to how much that is, realistically, I think it needs to be close to what Q gives you, but not as much. So for me, I'd probably say 35% around then, because it's enough to like make a difference. Like, let me see. So we normally have about what 300 AD by the end of a game. So 35%. So you get 105 extra damage for 35%, which I think's a reasonable amount. It makes your E a bit more valuable. Um, there's two ways they could go around it though. So they could either just give us AD scaling on E, or make it physical damage. Because if they make it physical damage, you actually benefit again from your Q. Because what you used to do is you'd Q them first and then follow up with an E, and your E would deal more damage because of the the armor reduction from your Q, which you don't really have anymore. So they could just go down the route of just like making it AD scaling, but like pure AD scaling instead of like hybrid, and then just switch it. But I think the safest thing to say is E, um, AD scaling. I'd say 20 to 35%. I think that's reasonable. Because even at 20%, right? Even at 20%, like let's say you got 300 again. Even at 20%, it's 60 extra damage. So your E right now, right, is 200. So it'd be doing 260. Early game, well, it wouldn't be 300 then, but yeah. I think asking for E to have AD scaling is a healthy option. Um, W, long, CD, early. So I think the main issue with the W right now, let me just put, uh, toxic, and low damage. We'll get to the R again later. So the W, I think a lot of us can agree the cooldown is far too long. I think what they should do is, let me switch again. So the original, it's this one. So the original cooldown of it was, where is it? So when we first got the W, right, it was 20 to 16 seconds. Next to clone. But then, what would it just be permanent then? As long as you stay within a certain distance of it. What's your thought process with the W clone? I can kind of see. Right, so the one thing I'm gonna say that's probably gonna be problematic with that is you. So let's say your top lane, right? You freeze the wave by the tower. You then can just abuse your clone by leaving it near the wave to farm for you, and you just like stay close to it. So you can farm at a safe distance, and your opponent can't really punish you for it, which would be problematic. Um, yeah, I think if you wanted the clone to last longer, we need to look at the Wild Rift kit for this. So on the Wild Rift kit, they have a quality of life feature that I have asked for so many times. So every point you put into your W increases the clone's duration. So it goes from 3 seconds to 4.5. So for us, because it's 5 points, 5 points, 5 points, 5 points, isn't it? Yeah, 5 points. So it would go. So in this case, the clone would go 3 to 5 seconds long, which I think is nice. It's increasing the overall value of the clone, um, for and rewarding you for leveling the W. But the one thing I did want to say about the W, so the cooldown's currently 22 to 14, right? I think a healthy alternative is to do a revert of the cooldown. So to revert it back to 20 to 16. So you're lowering the cooldown of the early game with the clone, but increasing it slightly in the late game, which sounds bad for the late game, but you've got to remember we build ability haste, right? So you're going to be less than 16 anyway. And the higher something is, the more value you get from ability haste. So you're essentially like getting more value in the early game and not really losing much in the late game. So I think one of the things I do want to say is W CD. What's it currently? 22 to 14, isn't it? 22 to 14 to 20 to 16, which would it's just a straight nerf to the straight revert of the nerf they did to the W cooldown. And then one thing I do want to say is the clone duration 3 to 5, 3 to 5 to 3 to 5, because I think like quality of life will give a lot to the kit without making it too overpowered, right? So like the clone scaling with your W skill points is gonna bring you a lot of value without like making the W too problematic. Let me just bring this up. So that's kind of what I've got so far. So sustain, obviously he's got low MR, passive armor, regen got nerfed. Damage, he's got 1 damage skill, no scaling on E. Damage nerfs to Q. R, toxic knock up, low damage. And then W, long CD. So I've played him in most MOBAs. Um, he's alright. I like his passive in that. That's pretty good. His ult's pretty fun as well. I'm not. The problem I've got with Dota Monkey King is his transformation. It's a good gimmick, right? But there's not many situations where it can help you out. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, if you look at Monkey King in, or well, Wukong in Smite, in Dota, um, I can't remember the other ones. There's some mobile ones I've played as well where it's the same. His Q is always like a line skill shot that stuns. Um, which makes sense to me because yeah. Well, personally for me, I'd rather lose the clone attacking off the W. I'd prefer to have it where the clone just stands there being a distraction, like he used to be with the old kit, and then you could have a longer stealth time. You could move the actual like so-called power of the W into the rest of his kit. So like if you look at the old Wukong, he used to get pushed 100 units away, get invisibility for 1.5 seconds, and leave behind a decoy. Decoy, after 1.5 seconds, did an AoE that dealt magic damage. You never max, like, once you had 1 point in your decoy, that's all you needed, really. Because you never bothered with the damage from the decoy. Whereas, like, the current iteration we've got, you're reliant on it because it's not just like a decoy. Yeah, it is way more interesting, I'll agree, but it's also more overloaded, and you've got to think like you want this for the clone damage essentially in fighting because you're lacking damage elsewhere in the kit, right? You've lost 80% scaling off your E. You've lost damage scaling off your Q, which is your main and only damage skill. So you're heavily reliant on having your clone up to do your Q and W, your auto attack and Q spam. So it will mimic the auto attacks and Q. Whereas the old kit, you had decent damage on your Q. Your decoy was literally just a distraction tool and an escape tool and engage tool. So you wasn't reliant on it for your damage. And then your E had damage, which is what I'd prefer because I don't like. I'm okay with keeping the clone from the W, right? If they reduce the damage, say they make it like I think Wild Rift got a good example. So they've got the clone right. It does 20 to 50, while ours does 35 to 55. If they reduced the damage, but then like implemented that damage loss elsewhere in the kit, like say they reduced it to, I don't know, like a flat 35, um, and then like put some AD scaling on E to compensate that kind of thing, I'd be all right with that. Uh, Let me see. Yeah, but this is my argument. If we get AD scaling back, like if they revert the W and give us the 80% AD scaling back, I think a lot of people would be happy with that because you're still getting like. Because to me, I just think they've overcomplicated the W more than it needs to be. Like, it's a good skill, don't get me wrong. It's nice, it's fancy. You get a clone that helps you in combat, it's great. But realistically, you lost 80% scaling off your primary damage skill. that's now your secondary damage skill that you might, in some situations, you don't even max till last. So it's literally just an attack steroid for most of the game. Imagine E did no damage, but mark the target you dash to, and then attack them. If you attack them, aim 3 times. So kind of like Monkey King's passive in Dota. Um, I think that would be better as a passive in general if they just replaced his passive with that rather than making it part of the E. Yeah, you're right. It does take away from his skill expression, but you're also essentially you're being punished right now, right? Your W's punishing you, and your R's punishing you because W's overloaded as fuck, right? Like when we got the rework, they didn't even want to give us the dash over walls because they said it's too overloaded, and then like it took what 2 years to get the dash over walls, and then the R is just toxic as well. There's so much power, not in terms of damage in the R, but in terms of what it does. Because in any situation where you're playing with like a pre-made, like pro play for example, this is always going to be problematic because of the double knock up. Because all it takes is me to say on comms to the other 4 people, can we get new? Dash is minor compared to other dashes. Yeah, but it's what the W does as well as that, because it's not just because you got to think it's a short range dash that goes over walls. It gives you invisibility. It leaves a clone behind. The clone also attacks for a few seconds and mimics your other skills. That's like 5 or 6 things that just there in one ability. In terms of like compared to other champions, overall his kit isn't overloaded, but W itself is overloaded for a skill. Whereas if you compare what the old W did, which was literally just, it was just you get pushed away. It wasn't even a dash; it was a push, so you couldn't use it to go over walls. You go invisible and you leave a clone behind, and then after a few seconds, the clone deals a bit of damage and disappears. That was it. Can we get rather see it put on his overall kit? Yeah, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, I get people like the W, and I like the W, but it is an overloaded skill, which with the R is the reason that we're losing a lot of power elsewhere in the kit. Because you've got to think, like, is it worth having a clone that attacks for 35% of your damage when you're losing 80% off of that of scaling off your E? To me, it's not. Yeah, but you could look to like make his other abilities not as simple, but this is more like going down the lines of like reworks rather than just like buffs and adjustments. So I think we will stay clear of this W discussion because it is kind of just like we want to pin what we want to pinpoint is like the actual issues with his kit, um, and like focus on like buffs or like slight adjustments, not completely like changing an ability. Like as much as I'd love to go back to the old W, that would be part of a rework, not part of a buff or an adjustment. Because I don't think realistically, I don't think he needs much to buff his kit. Um, like I said, like I think right now, if they revert these nerfs, and then give us the AD scaling on E. But the thing is, like, I don't think many people realistically use the clone for the ult anyway. At least, like, not a lot of times. Obviously, like, if you're on top of someone, you will, but you're not using, like, if you're on top of someone and then you clone and then ult, it's not really getting the value of the knock up anyway, because the clone can't knock up anyone that you've already knocked up. I think for the W, the only thing you really need, like the main issue with the W right now is the cooldown, which is why I'm suggesting that instead of having 22 seconds to 14 seconds, we go 20 to 16, which is what the original cooldown was when they gave us the rework, because you're losing 2 seconds early, which is nice at the cost of 2 seconds late game. But that 2 seconds late game realistically isn't going to be 2 seconds, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to have like what, three, maybe four items with ability haste on. In fact, I've got League open. Let me check. So 20 ability haste. Sundered, I believe, has ability haste. Does Sundered have ability haste? I think it does, doesn't it? And then Shojin's has ability haste. And that's essentially your core right now. So you're looking 20 to 15. I mean, you could just, okay, you know what? I'll meet you the extra mile. We'll say 20 to 14. We'll just lose the 2 seconds late. That's what we'll ask for. I think people would prefer that. But yeah, and then obviously, like, for me personally, I'd like to see the clone duration scale with the W. So instead of being 3.25, it's 3 to 5 seconds, which would bring you more overall value and possibly make it that you actually want to max your W second instead. Because I know when pro players were playing him, they max W second, but a majority of players don't, right? I don't. I'm pretty sure a lot of people here don't, because E's your attack speed, E's a bit of damage. It's not much, but it's a bit of damage. But, you know, W, you probably should technically max second. Yeah, I suppose. W. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, for the jungle, personally, I don't. I normally take the E second just because of the attack speed. Um, E barely scales, yeah. I think in the jungle it's a bit better just because of like the attack speed, like scaling, and the clone duration not really scaling, because the clone's only really going to hit one target, whereas it doesn't really, like, you're only scaling it for the cooldown, and in the jungle you don't really need it because you'll probably have it up every camp or nearly every camp. So yeah. Um, how do people feel about the clone scaling with duration though? Because, like, it's something that Wild Rift has got, and it is something that would make W more valuable, like max in second. But if it's not something that people want, then I think we just aim to get the cooldown reduced in every role. Okay, I guess I can try it out. Hmm. I don't know. I think it would be nice if the clone duration did scale though. Let me see. Wild Rift. So, hmm. But I think Wild Rift has the set as 1 point. No, no, it's 1 second in Viz. That's a shame. You thought about it again, because like I said, you got to remember as well. Like the higher something is cooldown wise, the more value you get out of your ability haste. So essentially, like, where was the formula for this now? Ability haste calculator, CDR, cooldown reduction. So essentially, off your core build, right? I don't think duration is an issue at the moment. What you think the W duration? Yeah, I suppose. Okay, I'll scrap that bit then. So the main thing we want for the W essentially is to drop the cooldown by 2 seconds in the early, which I think is it's not really losing much, but it's losing enough to help with the early game. I think that's a fair ask. Um, E, how do people feel about AD scaling on E? CD, yeah, scrap it, yeah. Yeah, we'll get rid of the clone duration then. It is something I'd like to see, but obviously it's not like needed. Problem is weak bonk and weak E, not enough damage unless snowball. Yeah, yeah. 80 scaling, yeah. That's how I kind of feel. Like I feel because obviously his E used to have 80 scaling, right? It used to be 80%, but like I said earlier, I think we want AD scaling on E, but we want less than than Q because obviously with the way they've redesigned his kit, the ECD is fine, I believe. Let me check. So E's cooldown is 10 to 8 seconds, and it's 30 to 50 mana. So I don't really feel like the mana's an issue or the cooldown because it's only 2 seconds more than your Q. Yeah, I think in terms of CD, the main ones that are an issue is the W. W is definitely an issue for CD, and the Cyclone, the ult, the R. But if they were to give us AD on the E, I don't think it would matter as much for the RCD because I feel like right now you're reliant on the ult because it's your second damage skill essentially. Um, so you're playing around that and your Q for your damage. Whereas if you had another skill doing damage, that being your E, you wouldn't have to be as reliant on like waiting for your Q. Um, Q. I think if they were to like do Q damage, I think they just need to revert the nerf to it. So it put it back to 30 to 130 with 50% AD. Yeah, it needs more damage. There's nothing. We prefer more Q damage to E scaling. Okay, I'll put that down. So personally, right, for the Q, if we're asking for damage, right? Because right now Q is 200 to 20 to 220 with 45%, right? Previously, it was 30 to 130 with 50%. I think just reverting because it's just a revert essentially, a revert of the damage nerf. I think that is more than enough for the Q. Like Q because you're getting slightly better scaling, and you're starting with a base 30 with 50% bonus AD scaling. It's 10 more damage. Well, it's more than 10 damage because it's 10 damage plus 5% scaling more. Which, because when they did the rework, I felt like it felt healthier to me. Like, obviously, it wasn't to the same levels as it was before. Um, what was it before? Lore history. So it used to be 10 plus. Oh wow, I forgot it was that bad. So what was it before the reduced it to 10? I gotta go back a bit now. Find this. Yeah, I still fit. Here it is. So it used to be 30 to 150 with 10 to 50% AD scaling before the rework. Well, sorry, before it got nerfed before the rework. And then it went to 10 to 130 with 0 to 40% AD. So I think the best thing to do is push for the revert of the nerf. Because I think an extra 10 damage at every level and 5% more scaling, that should generally fix your Q damage issues. Personally, I'd still like to see some EAD scaling. Like, to me, ideally, I'd like to see the charge of the R removed, so we only have one, and then move the power of the second knock up and the damage. So you get a bit of damage and a bit of knock up added back to the R. So instead of it being 0.6 second knock up, it's a 1 second knock up. And instead of it being what's the total? Being 16%. Is that right? Total physical. Yeah, 16% plus 275% AD. It'll be 24% plus 300% AD. So you buff the damage slightly overall. Yeah, that's essentially what I'd like to see. But I feel like that's more of like a rework than a adjustment. Yeah, but the thing is, it to get that E power, we need to take from somewhere else in his kit, which to me is why logically I'd want to take it from the ult, because you can up the knock up duration to 1 second. You can up the damage of the ult, so it's doing good. It's doing good damage for one ult. It's essentially doing like, so one ult. Yeah, let's see here. So one ult right now at max level is 16% of the target's max HP and 275% AD. Two is 32% and 550%, right? What I'm suggesting is 24% instead of 16% with the one charge. So it's nearly double the damage plus 300%. And then you could take the rest of that power. You could go, right, the knock-up's going to be 1 second instead of 0.6. So you still got like a valuable knock-up from it. He's still providing what they want him to do in a team fight. But then you can go, well, we also want to up the damage scaling of the E a bit. Move some of that damage to the E. Whether that's going to be like AD scaling or improving the base damage. Because I think essentially you could just leave it without AD scaling, right? But they'd have to change the damage. They'd have to up it. Yeah. But the problem is the R doesn't do damage, right? Because this 32% means you're spinning on someone for 4 seconds. 4 seconds with the two casts, and you've got to have decent AD on top. It's not enough to kill someone unless they're like below 32% when you use the ult. You're probably not going to kill them with both ults. But if you move it, then I just spam hybrid Wukong. But you can't do that now anyway. Like his E's got 100% AP scaling, and like, why aren't people playing hybrid Wukong right now? Because you can build Lich Bane. Lich Bane scales off Q and off AD and AP. I know you want to keep it like so. For me, like I fully agree with keeping the ult if they up the damage. If they made it so like it was more damage overall, I'd agree that we should keep the double knock up or the two charges. Um, but where are you taking that damage from in the kit? Because this is kind of like how Riot looks at things, at least from what I've seen. Is like if you want to buff something, you need to look at like or make an adjustment. You need to look at where that's coming from. Unless something's like consistently like to the like 30% or less win rate, you're not. You've got to take the power from elsewhere. And unfortunately, a lot of us think that this skill right here is the problem skill in the kit. Thank you for the hydrate. So yeah, I do, that being said, again, I don't think we'll see anything happen to the R because it would be part of a rework rather than a buff or an adjustment. Um, so that won't happen anytime soon. So you double R safe for now, I believe. Wukong's win rate. So this is overall, right? This is all ranks on the world. So jungle is 48% across all ranks with a 1.3% pick rate. So the pick rate, that is going to be OTPs and the occasional non-OTP playing him. Top lane, 49%, 0.5%. If we actually break it down further and look at, let's go diamond. Diamond, 49%, 7.7% pick rate, 46%, 1% pick rate. It's insanely bad. It's insanely bad right now. Like his win rate, like even though he has 49% across all ranks, that is bad because it's a 0.5% pick rate. That means it's only one tricks that are picking him in top lane, or 1.3. There's a few more people picking him jungle, but again, it's primarily one tricks. Now, if one tricks are struggling to be positive KDA with him, yeah. But the thing is, it's you can't take the win rate as a good thing right now because 48% might look good, and what was it, 49% Q heal per cast, move 50% AD scale on and all. I don't know about that though because it's not it's not really a buff or adjustment. I mean, it's more of like a rework suggestion. And I get like having a heal on the Q because obviously Wild Rift Wukong heals on Q instead of Armor Shred. Um, yeah, Like I think with itemization right now, we're in a better position than we was the last few seasons. But we're still gonna build Sundered Sky instead of Divine. We're still looking for that heal, but we're looking for damage primarily first, and then looking for that, and then looking for sustain. Um, I think I don't know. Oh man, because if we like, he's just gets progressively worse the higher up you go. Like Iron is doing somewhat okay. The early for Wukong is so. Oh yeah. Um, Sustain somewhere. So that's why I'm suggesting passive reverts. So if we, that's why I'm suggesting to revert these here, because if they up his armor to 34, yeah. So revert the MR to 32, which was what it was before the rework, because he lost 4 MR. He lost the passive that gave him MR, so he just lost a bunch of MR for nothing. Next patch we're losing the the 4. Sorry, it's not 4, is it? What? How much does the mini rune give? I can't remember. Let me have a look. Runes. 6, isn't it? 8 magic resist. So we're losing them. Yeah, it's 8. So you're losing 8 MR. If you ever took the mini rune. So we're going to be in a situation where we're stuck with 28 MR, and if you go against the top, like, it's not so much problematic for me as a jungle Wukong, but as a top lane, if so, all someone's got to do is pick like Mordekaiser, and they're just going to shit on you just because you can't you haven't got as much MR as you should. Because like for me, I feel like that mini rune, yeah, he would. Which is why I'm saying that they should revert his MR to 32, because that will put him in a nice spot. Yeah, like all you're gonna face top is like an AP champ that's somewhat good, and you won't be able to do anything. You won't be able to farm. You won't be able to trade. You just won't be able to do anything because you've got no MR. And it's not like Pantheon where he can, like, Pantheon has 28 MR as well, right? But Pantheon has his shield that can just block all the damage that you're throwing his way while dealing damage to you. Yeah. So by putting it back to 32, yeah. I mean, I think Jax is a ban right now anyway because of how strong he is. Yeah. Because you're essentially like your first item into that matchup is going, like, your first 2 items is going to have to be like Hex Drinker and Merc Treads. So you're progressively like pushing off your entire build to like try, not even to counter your opponent, to build to like survive against your opponent, and not even like survive, just to like exist in the same lane and stuff. Um, so by having 32 MR, that puts him in a healthier spot, like he used to be. Because essentially with the mini room right now, you go to 34 with the AP with the MR one, so it'd be two less MR, so it puts you in like a slightly better spot. Uh, and then armor, I think they need to revert the armor to 34. Yeah, like I don't really have these problems as a jungler because I just, like, for me, I just take the MR rune anyway most of the time. just because I know my passive will sustain me through the jungle, and I can just have the extra MR for the late game to help keep me alive a bit there. 1.3 to 5 MR, level 1, plus more per level 2. Yeah. Well, the team I can't really do anything to you post 6, as long as you've got your ult and ignite or whatever. Hey, thank you for the follow. Q or flat healing damage instead of bonus AD. I think the bonus AD is fine. I think the Q damage is in a nice spot. It's just a bit shy, if you get what I mean. Like, it does a good amount of damage. It just needs that little extra push, which is why I think they should just revert it to what it was. So you're getting 10 more and then 5% more scaling. I think that is more than enough for the Q. It's just more like I feel like his E needs some damage as well. Because they could just not really, isn't without could get damage, finish someone off. Yeah, but that's the thing. You'd have 10 more damage every level. Is it 10 more damage? Let me just double check. Patch history. Where are we looking? So 30, 55, 70. You need to play it like you're a full rank above to compete against people. Not win against, but compete. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I think his E needs some AD scaling personally. Because after your Q, your autos don't really do a lot of damage. Early Q damage increase wouldn't do a lot. But it's not just early Q damage. It's let me show you. Uh, oh, okay, that didn't want to paste for some reason. There we are. So that's the suggestion I'm making, because right now it's 20, 45, 70, 95, 120 plus 45% bonus AD, and then I'm suggesting 30, 55, 80, 105, 130 plus 50% bonus AD. Early increase. Like it's a subtle increase. It's essentially it's just a revert of a nerf they did. I do agree though that I feel like he needs something else though. That's why I think he needs something on the E. That's why I'm saying like 20 to 30% bonus AD. It's not much, but it's enough to make a difference, right? So let's say in laning phase you probably got about 100 AD, right? So let me work this out. So 20% of 100. I can't believe I had to. I just typed that. So you get 20 extra damage on your E if you had 100 AD. So your E would be doing, instead of doing 80, it would do 100, 130, 160, 190, 220. And that's just with like 20%, right? Off 100 AD. I don't. So I don't think his jungle is too bad now. It does feel like it needs something, but this is where the E having AD scaling comes in, right? Because the E having AD scaling is not only going to help with farming in jungle and top and trade it. Well, I mean, it's just gonna it's gonna do that essentially. It's gonna help you to farm in the jungle because you're doing more overall damage to the camps. It's gonna help with the laning phase because you're gonna do more overall damage. Yeah, but you can we can ask for both. That's what I'm. We don't have to just settle on like asking for only AD scale, like more AD scaling on Q. We want to try and like just give them a list and then just go like this is what we want. This is what we want. What can you do? Because like we might want right now we might ask for. So we might ask for all this stuff, right? And they might turn around and go, "Yeah, we're not going to give you the Q change, but we'll give you the E change." And then we're going to be like, "Well, are we really going to complain that we didn't? We're getting a damage buff on something that needs damage instead of something that's already doing okay-ish damage?" Like I get it would help a bit. Because of the the Q early damage, but say I'm used to it being the primary primary scaling skill, so that's why I kind of want it to have AD scaling as well. I think 80%. Like I don't see us getting the 80% bonus. And Divine Central built in Q. I wish. I wish. Now I think the Q as it is fine. It just needs a bit of damage. Um, so the stats. I think the stats, like I said, revert the MR, revert the armor, revert the regen. Puts him in a slightly stronger point in lane. And it's not really going to affect your late game too much, right? Because right now, what is it per level for magic? It's 2, isn't it? So at level 1, you've got 28. Level 2. Oh, it's not. It's not. It's like 1.4. Oh, okay. So yeah, yeah. And I'm not gonna ask for like a lot. Like I think 20 to 30% bonus AD scaling on the E is more than enough. It's enough to make a difference because it's got scaling damage without making it without making it problematic. I'll put 35. I'll put 30. Uh, hey, scaling 20 to 30% bonus AD. Give. Um, yeah, the passive. I think generally the passive is fine. It's just yeah. Um, I just think the passive. The only thing we really need change significantly is putting it back to 3%. Because to 2.1, like I mean, it doesn't really make a huge difference anyway. But 3%, like, why are we at 2% when like set is like what? What's set's passive again? Like it's ridiculous amounts, isn't it? And Garen's like 5% per 5 or something. In fact, let's look at Garen. So Garen's regen on his passive is 1.5 to 10.1% every 5. Set is. Oh, that's not it. Where is it? Set is 0.15 to 2 health per second every second for 5% of his missing health. Hey, thank you for the follow. His W is better, Wukong pass it. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like if they were to do anything drastic with the passive, I'd want them to reduce the number of stacks we require, because they could reduce it to 6, and then you get 100% of the value per stack instead of getting, like, what is it, 62% per stack? What does it say? It's like 60. No, it's 50% per stack right now. Um, yeah, give me a sec. Are you in the Wukong mains Discord? Yeah, if you're in the Wukong mains Discord, I'll just let me know and I'll no. Do I have the link? That is a good question. So this is the Wukong mains Discord. If you want to join my Discord as well, uh, I think I've got a thing for it. I'm not sure. Let me just get a fresh link. Actually, that might work. And then that is my Discord if anyone wants to join. Um, so yeah, sweet, sweet. Yeah, just let me know when you're in, and I'll get you in a call. General. Ugh. But yeah, have you joined? Let me see. Right. So what was I saying? Yeah, I think if they were to, so with the passive, I don't think much needs to be done with it, honestly. I think if you're going to do anything, just revert the regen. I'd like to see the number of stacks get reduced. 1 second. Hello?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
Sorry to bother you about this, but I thought it's easier for me to speak as well.
Yeah, no worries.
So, can you do me a bit of a rundown? What did you guys discuss up until now? Because I kind of joined it, I had something to do.
So essentially, um, the main kind of like stuff is, uh, I think we need to like, his stats aren't in a great space right now. So
His base stats are probably some of the shittiest that they have
yeah,
ever been, and I played him before the rework.
yeah.
I know, trust me. I know.
Um, so what I'm suggesting for that is, uh, as you're probably aware, before the rework, he had 32 MR as his base MR.
It should be at either 33 or 35 if they want him to survive. Or they need to give him better scaling overall, more MR per level.
I
Because now what
think,
happens in top lane is I think this is the only way to put it. You either play against Rumble and hope to survive, or you play against Mord and you go AFK because you're not
mm,
gonna farm. It's
I
just
think
it's not
32
playable. I
might be
tried to play
enough
it
though,
against it, but it's just not happening.
because
Go on, sorry.
right now he's sitting at 28, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I think because he used to have 32. Obviously, it was technically more because of his old passive. Because his old passive, it was like an extra
Yeah,
four
you
in
were
lane.
at 34. Yeah, you were 34 level one. Then you were at 40, 42 or 43 level two.
Yeah,
Then you would jump about 60 at level three. I know it was exponential, the increase.
yeah. I think like just pushing for like the base MR, like revert for now is a good step.
That would be a good start. Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be a good start. On
Um.
stats, my opinion is attack speed is shit.
Yeah.
The nerf
Um.
that they found last year hit them really hard.
So the regen as well with the rework got nerfed. Um.
Twice.
So he used to have 6 per 5 for regen, and then when we got the rework, they dropped it to 5 per 5, but didn't actually write down that they'd done that. And then over time, that's dropped to 3.5 per
2.1.
5. So I'm
And then
suggesting they put that back to 5.
that would be a start, but that would create more problems in later stages because with the new items, you can go Kenny Krugans into mages to get the bonus healing. You can also play Sterax for the bonus regen, or you can play Titanic Hydra and you get a lot of regen all of a sudden. And then Wukong goes from a weak-ish regen champion to somebody who doesn't die because you play Sundered Sky plus one of those three items that gives you good regen, and that would probably that would eventually put him into a state of getting nerfed again.
Mm,
Why? Because you would thrive your best bet would be to try to make him thrive better in extended fights. I still don't understand why would you put all of his damage front loaded, but then make his passive so he has to stay in the fight more and more when
yeah.
he sucks in extended fights. So that's
So
why I suggested just remove the extra regen and put Q on hit healing. It's flat, not percentage, so it's easier for you to track. If it heals too much, you can nerf a bit of the numbers. If it nerfs too little, you can buff up the numbers, from the Q. The reason
yeah.
I said it's going to have a better healing in combat is because if you want to play him as a diver or a good top laner lane bully, you need to have a reason for him to stay in the fight. Now, if you fight Renekton, Darius, Garen, or Camille, they will out heal you pre-level 6 every time. The
Well,
problem
have you?
isn't that you don't have damage, it's just that you can't sustain enough to stay in the fight. One Q from Darius, one W from Camille, a shield from Mord, it's all that they need to put you out of lane pre-level 6.
Have you seen Wild Rift Wukong's queue since the new
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, I've
since
seen
the
it.
new rework? So they've just
Yeah,
reworked it. So it's
yeah, I know.
essentially it's still kind of similar to what it was before, where passive you've got the bonus 150 attack range on an attack after using an ability, and then the active deals bonus damage and heals him. But it also now has another passive that resets on takedowns. But every so often your next Q does like more damage essentially. I
Yeah,
haven't
it's
seen the
advantage
patch notes
advantage.
yet, but
Yeah, it's good because again, that way you would have a better burst combo. When Wukong does the full combo,
mm,
if you were to put that on live servers, you it would be really good when you would have to be in fights. But then you would have to nerf his ulti. If you put that in live servers, you either have to nerf his ulti or have to nerf again his base stats. And I
yeah,
don't think that's healthy because then he's not gonna be a lane bully anymore. He can't be one.
yeah,
He has to be a scaling one. It's a bit clunky the way the way you try to implement. You either have to import the kit from Wild Rift completely, or just add stuff that separates the champions one from another.
Yeah.
From Wild Rift to
Well,
you
I've
know.
brought it up to
And with
August a few times when I've been in his stream that, like, because for me, I'd be happy with them just giving us Wild Rift's kit because it does, like, it's got its
same
own
for me.
issues, don't get me wrong, but it's also fixes a lot of issues that client Wukong has. Um, but he just doesn't seem interested in it.
Yeah, because again, if they were to implement that, that would make him a bit too noob friendly. And since Wukong is a
Yeah,
bit of a stat stick, that would make him even bigger problem in pro play because in coordinated play, all you have to say with the Wild Rift kit, be like, hey, Wukong, dive the back line. We'll do the rest. You have enough healing. Just stay in the back line. We'll do the rest for you.
I
So
don't think his healing's that strong in Wild Rift. I think it's just it's
it's
been a
not in
while since
Wild
I've
Rift, but
played,
if you
but
were to import it here, you would have to take into consideration Standard Sky and Eclipse.
yeah, true. Let me see. Because right now, according to the wiki, it's a 15 to 60 heal. But let me just read the bottom because they change it a bit. So, uh, healing bonus healing ratio. Right. So heal is reduced to 50% against non-champions. Base heal is
2024 better. Choose ICOS because you
sorry
save
about that.
money.
Some random ads
You
playing.
don't smell like an ashtray. You choose better.
Yeah, give me a second. I'm trying to figure out what's playing right
ICOS
now.
Illuma 1. Now for £29.
Okay, I don't know what that was. So yeah, so it got it's the Wild Rift, yeah. So base healing is 30 to 90, and healing ratio increased from 10% bonus health to 16, and heal is reduced by 50% on non-champ. Oh right, it's actually pretty strong heal. Yeah, that could be problematic.
Yep, exactly.
Hmm.
So, my opinion, the way we should be working around what buffs he would need is first of all he needs better base stats. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
something that
I'd
he
definitely
definitely
agree. He
needs.
needs better base stats. That I think like the bare minimum we need to ask for base stats is his armor and MR need to be upped.
Yeah, or if they don't want to give that, for the love of God, please revert the AD ratio and the AD level one nerfs that he got. Those ones gutted him from the level one already he would have
So
top lane.
again,
And that's what made him strong top lane. That was the whole point. He could always get level 2 prio, even in bad matchups, like Mordor Rumble. You would have the damage, you'd have enough with the attack speed and the base stats that you had then, you could shove them out of lane so you get level 2 first. I
when did
wouldn't say you would
they?
win. Overall, it was in I think it was in spring this year when
Oh,
they
yeah, I've
or no.
seen it. So there were two separate patches. So you had attack damage growth reduced to 3.5 from 4 in 11.12, and then
Yeah. It was
in
280 level 1.
where is it? Yeah. 13.7 base attack damage reduced to 66 from 68.
Yeah. And that just pushed you basically pushed out of fighting everyone. And you said something about the region of champions. Do not compare a bruiser's region to a juggernaut's region. Mord, Garen, Darius said they have to have better region because they don't have mobility. We have mobility. So you don't need
Mm.
regen. Your point would be to have combat mobility. When you have to stay in the fight. If they want to go towards that direction, it's better to give them combat
But
healing,
with
just
with the
like he has
re
on Wild.
with the regen, I was just comparing it to similar
Yeah,
regen
I know.
passives because you got
Yeah,
to think essentially our regen most of the time is 0.35% because it's not like you're going
which
to
is
be
pretty much
max
nothing.
stacked most of the time,
Yeah, I know.
and even when you are max stacked, it's only 2.1%. Most of them are like they're like, I mean, Garen's is 1% base per five. Obviously,
That's a
he's a
lot, but
juggernaut.
it is.
He's tankier. He's gonna have a stronger one. And it is just like
Yeah.
that is his passive, just the regen. So his goes up to 10%. Sets
Oh,
is more the lower he gets and stuff, but
yeah, yeah. It's a completely different ball game set. The problem is
yeah,
the more he stays in the fight for you, the better it is at beating you. And when I was saying that it's better for Wukong to have a better flat damage on Q is because you're lane bull, right? If
yeah, but
Set gets level
that's
2
what I'm
before
suggesting
you,
anyway
or
with
you
the
get,
Q. What I'm suggesting with the
that's
Q,
what
because right now the
go on.
Q is uh it's 20 to 120 damage flat plus 45% bonus AD. What I'm suggesting is to revert the nerf they did because it used to be 30 to 130 flat plus 50%
Yeah.
AD. So you'd get 10 more damage per level, per skill in it, and 5% more
Yeah,
scaling.
and it adds up because you queue at least 4 times in one fight.
Yeah.
And in a full combo, you queue at least 4 times, so it's 40, you lose 40 damage basically every fight. And of course, it adds up because the clone also loses the damage, so on and so forth.
Yeah. So that was essentially what I was suggesting for the Q, is just revert the damage nerf, which they did. I can't remember what patch it was. It was quite early on. Um,
Early spring.
it's somewhere in here, but yeah, it was quite early on. They nerfed the Q damage, and then the the passive. I think they just like if they leave it as it is. I think they just need to revert the nerf to the regen.
If they
So
leave it as it is, yeah, just revert the region nerf, and it's still gonna be clunky, but at least it's gonna be usable.
yeah,
Then on base stats, he either needs to get the MR, to get the base MR that he had at level 1, or the base armor that he used to have at level 1 pre 2023 nerfs,
I think both
or
essentially
give him
because
the offensive back, because you can't have both worlds. You can have the reverse from all offensive and defensive plus others kind. Everything is gonna make again overpowered.
I
So it's
think you
better
get
to choose
more.
one of these.
I think you'd get more value from the the like the armor in MR than the 2 AD though, because he got an armor revert after he got reworked, so he went from 34 armor to 31. So my suggestion is to just put him back to 34 armor, and then with the MR put him back to 32. So he'll be sitting at a 34 and a 32 for his base stats.
Well, yeah, that would be good. But since you just said you're a jungle main, right?
Yeah,
No, primarily, you
yeah.
barely play top lane. Okay,
Sometimes, but
well,
not
I hate
often.
to play jungle.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just like you're basically forced to play top lane, just like I'm forced to play jungle sometimes. It's not my strong suit for sure. But um, in my opinion, they either have to go for a rework, on a few of his abilities, or they need to do some flat buffs.
mm,
My opinion would be if they want to go the boss route, that's fixing him short term. Right now, he needs something. If it's a
yeah,
rework on an ability or not, doesn't matter. He needs anything to survive because they're buffing the Juggernauts again. And if they buff them again, you're not going to be able to play top lane at all. The only decent role is going to be he's going to be shoved out because you beat Darius in lane. You just lose to him later because he'll eventually have 4,000 health. He's going to do 1k damage with his ulti and also sustain you in fights.
yeah,
So it's a ticking time. Same thing with Garen, same thing with Mort, same thing with Seth. And most of his champions are getting buffed, or their items have been buffed, like Mort. So they either put an AD scaling on his E,
yeah,
a flat healing on his Q, or revert most of the base numbers that he had nerfed in 2023. Because he was so tied to Divine Thunder, and that I am so problematic. I used it, but I knew that it was eventually gonna get removed or completely reworked because it was too strong.
yeah. Definitely, definitely.
It eventually happened. Now with Standard Sky, that the point is you have to invest almost double the gold to get a bit more, let's say 20% more in value, because you have to have Trinity and Standard Sky to do
Yeah,
what you did with Divine Thunder. but now you're also over nerfed because of pro play, and your base numbers don't reflect the fact that you're supposed to be a lane bully when you get lane bullied out of lane by somebody like a Swain Pump. Or in the jungle, even worse, if they have a Jarvan, somebody who you should be able to fight, he just puts a flag on top of you and you have to run because you can't beat him anymore.
Yeah.
So he needs at least the base numbers reworked. Most of them, if not all of them, most of them. The MR, the armor, HP regen, or the AD. But if they want to buff him in a meaningful way, they can put the point, I think, point 25 AD scaling on his E from point 25 to point 35. It depends on what they want, how they want to do it.
So I was
Because that way,
suggesting for the
Wukong isn't a
E,
minion without his ulti.
I was suggesting giving E 20 to 30% bonus AD scaling.
Yeah, that would be good. I think they could start with a middle ground of 25%, but then they would have to cut a bit of the ulti's power. Let's
Yeah.
say they take it from 275% to 250%, you know?
Yeah.
So you would have more reliable damage to do with your E. It's not just a stat boost, but then you wouldn't one-shot people with your ulti because Wukong breaking with an ulti, you can do at least 15k damage in a fight just with the ulti, as long as you get more than one person with your R, like with both of your Rs, both of the charges. So they would definitely have to chip away at that power, but it's still
To be honest,
problematic with the ulti.
I'm kind of like ad- someone that advocates for just having one charge of the R instead of two. I feel like
Yeah, and
the
what I
two
would
is
want
just
is just
problematic.
revert it, to be honest. They
Yeah.
don't even need to change much from it. Just give it back the old range, the old knockup, and you can put, let's say, 200 or 175% AD scaling, but keep the max health damage. So you have one way to shred through tanks.
Yeah. Well, my suggestion, if they were to give us one charge of the R, is to so right now one R is at max level,
Point 6
so
seconds.
it's 16% of the target's max HP over the 2 seconds,
Yeah,
plus
yeah.
275% AD. My suggestion: 24% of the target's max health and 300% AD, and then make the knockup go from zero point 0.6 to 1 second. So you get a bit more
Yeah, but that
knockup
would
time.
be that would yeah, but that would be overpowered though. Imagine
Not
you
with
would
one
have
charge,
to
because
put
you gotta think
um
you're doing 32% of the target's max health and 550% and a 1.2 second knockup with the
yeah,
two charges.
that is on paper. What you're saying is if you can land both of your charges of your ulti so you can sit on a target for 4 seconds. But tell me when does it happen? When do you stay on a target for 4 seconds? It's either when you fight a mage with Zonias or when you fight a tank, right? The
Mm,
ADC doesn't really need the second charge. When you fight an ADC or a squishier target, they are already dead by the end of the first charge. 70 to 80% of their health is gone, so you just need one more Q or a double Q with the clone. If you were to put that much power into the ulti, again, with 300% AD scaling, you could play Wukong with Eclipse and you almost Ghostblade, and you would be one-shotting both the support and the ADC, just like you would do pre-rework. But that's no counterplay because within that 1 second while they're knocked up, you do pretty much all the damage. So it would put him back into that conundrum of, okay, if he gets onto me, he kills me, like it was in
mm,
season 8, if you remember.
yeah. So are you
That
just
was the problem,
suggesting?
even in problem.
So what are you
I'm suggesting
suggesting
to
for?
put more power into his Q and E or base stats, but
So
cut a bit
so
from the
just
oldies.
so just drop it to one charge and leave it at 16% and 275%
It
AD.
can it it can yeah, it can go upwards, let's say to 20% max. But anything more than that, it would be just enough for him to use one ulti in one team fight. He can die. He can buy the Zonias,
Mm,
and he can just ulti with the Zonias into 5 people. He would do like 20k damage with the ulti because nobody would be able to fight him. 24 to 30% max HP shreds through tanks, through squishes, through everything. Would be like a glorified version of Jax,
Would you leave
and
it
we
at
know how that works.
yeah? Would you leave it at 2 second duration or revert it to 4 seconds like it used to be?
I would put it scaling. It would go from 2 to 3 to 4. So you would have more of the damage, but on one charge, like you had it, like you had the 4 seconds flat before. The
Yeah,
reason I'm saying that is because then Wukong would be a massive threat in team fights with his ulti. But if he ulted, okay, good. He ulted. If he wanted to one shot the target, he ulted. Okay, it's done. Most of his threat range is gone. But if you put back the old radius that he had, he becomes way stronger in team fights where he exceeds the most. But if he, for example, had to use his ulti on a priority target, he would still be able to do damage to a tank. He still would have armor bank. He still would have a gap closer. He would still be able to do damage with his base kit, with his Q and his E. I mean. Because now you spam Q on targets, no matter if they're squishes or tanks. So if his ulti is down, he will not kill nobody unless he plays assassin in time before they can kill him because he doesn't have any CC. It's like playing Jax without the counter strike. You would take full damage from everybody. The second you go into the team fight without your ulti, you get CC chained to death. That's why
what?
when Wukong ults, have you seen that everybody scatters? The reason they scatter is because once his ulti is out or both of the charges go down, they can just walk up to you. You are
Yeah,
strong, but you're not threatening. Like a Jax, for example. Even if he ults, if he hits you with the stun without his ulti cast, he still kills you. Well, Wukong doesn't do that now. It's more like I'll do some support damage after I did my massive 2K combo damage thing. That's undodgeable for squishies,
yeah.
and that's for both for jungle and for top lane. It's the same problem. Post level 13, once everybody starts to get team fights, Wukong without ulti has to split push. You have to split push because you cannot fight a 1v2 without your ulti. But Jax can. Any other bruiser can fight a 1v2 without their ulti. Or at least tough it out. That's somebody like Renekton, for example. He can tough it out, fight, up until his team gets there. Wukong gets exploded. I have been two-shot by a Riven, even though I had my ulti. By the time I knocked her off, she already cuts through me instantly. Like, by the time the stun finished, I didn't have any more health to do any more damage. So you either have to go in first, or you have to wait for somebody that has better engaged than you to do something so you can engage with them. Because of how threatening and massive your ulti is in team fights right now, as we speak, because of the two charges. But that's unhealthy for the game. In coordinated play, you saw what happened last year. He was
Yeah,
undodgeable. In team fights, he was legitimately undodgeable. He would E on one target, W to the other one, and do a massive combo on both.
yeah.
So it's hard. It would still not help him that much on the long term, but that would at least make him more threatening without his ulti. No, he wouldn't have the Malphite syndrome where if his ulti is down, nobody cares. Like, they just you walked past him because he can't do shit to you.
So what do you think about W reverting to what it was like pre-rework, but keeping
That
the
would be a bad
dashing
idea.
combos?
That would be a bad idea. If the clone doesn't help you out do the damage, then everybody would be able to tell which one is auto attacking and which one is just sitting still. It's
But
good as
it
it is.
becomes
Just
more of
remove
like a.
some of the damage.
I think it kind of got quite overloaded though with the rework. Because obviously, pre-rework, it was literally just an engage disengage tool,
The
and now
W,
it's
the
like
clone.
say that again. Sorry.
You mean the clone, the W.
Yeah, yeah, the W. Whereas now it's just
Oh,
kind of like it's meant to be your engage disengage, but it's also like your attack steroid that you kind of need in combat. Whereas like if you reverted it, you could put that power from the clone's damage elsewhere in his kit.
another way that they could do it is probably just cut away at the damage that the clone does because it's good to have a way, it's a skill expression tool. Why? Because not many Wukong players know how to use the W effectively. Probably you know about this if you play them, but you know that you can extend the clone's health by ulting at the last 0.25 seconds because it's still gonna make use the full cast and then it's gonna disappear.
Yeah,
Not many people know about this. It's a good skill expression tool, but if you revert it, then it's just as you said, is just a defensive tool. So it's going to become even more of a stat stick. So we need to
Mm.
put skill expression into the champion if you want to make it if you want to be able to differentiate between Wukong players that just smash their face onto the keyboard and hope the enemy dies, and somebody who knows when to engage and how to use the clone defensively or offensively. That's the most skill expressive part of his kit, the W. You can use it to juke, you can use it to reposition, you can use it for offensive power, or you can use it to disengage somebody that has, for example, a massive tool engage like a Zaki. You can let your W go as he's flying towards you, then ulti his entire team and cancel his E with your clone because your clone also knocks out. So, it has the better way to show how good you are at the champion, how much you understand this kit. If you revert it, you take away, just like they took from Cassante's kit expression, and now he just spams W in everybody because
Yeah.
people don't know how to combo.
So
So
what about
it's a good tool. It's just overpowered. It's over no
yeah?
not overpowered, overtuned.
Over to yeah,
Just
yeah.
you need to remove either the damage from it, or you can make it so he cannot use his Q because the Q is the main thing. That's the problem. You can use with the clone two Qs in one fight, which in my opinion is too much. You can limit her ability, your clone's ability to only be able to use only one of each, only one attack speed steroid, only one Q, only one of
So I guess you don't want the Wild Rift W. They've I don't know if you've seen, but they've changed it so the clone essentially it's kind of like how Nico's clone works, where when you W you go invisible and the clone runs in the direction that you was aiming. But if you start attacking someone, the clone will walk up to them and attack them. And if you use your E, the clone also E's.
It's, if we're talking about that version of W, I think it would be a bit too complicated for a simple champion. In the sense of you're not getting that much reward for it. It's just like a LeBlanc clone. It makes sense on the champion, but
Mm.
when you try to think of how to use it effectively, if it doesn't have an explode option like Shackle, when you can at least make it detonate or do something with it, people are not going to invest time into learning how to maximize that ability because it's better for you to just use it. It is an effective, repositioning tool.
But there'd be more skill expression for those that do wanna learn it, because it's not just like let me bring up a video of it so you can see it. So I did save it to go over. So if you look on the stream, you should see it now. So it's just going over the current one, and then the new
Hold
one
on.
it will show after. So any second now. So this is what the new one does. You W, you still do like your little dash, but the clone will run in the direction you was aiming, and then it will do your E, it will do your Q, it mimics your R as well.
Yeah, I can see. I like it and I don't at the same time in a way. It's just I'm trying to think about about how the champion functions and how much fluidity would you put into his kit because most people are used to be a diver. So we've all played it as more of a diver with a good repositioning tool because now that's what his W is, or a good combat spell if you really need the damage. That
Mm.
would add a lot of stuff. I like it, but I don't like it that much. It's just I think I need to let it grow. The reason I like this one so much is because you can cancel out other people's combos. They can believe that they're hitting the clone when in fact they hit you. So
Yeah.
if you were to do that, the clone immediately would run. So they would eventually be able to tell, just like Nico's clone. They would eventually be able to tell which is which because it also I think doesn't do the damage. Right?
But I think with this one as well, it opens up value of. So you know how pre-rework you'd usually clone a lot of times to engage, like you'd W into an E into an R kind of thing. So you'd use the stealth to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
into range and stuff. Obviously now,
yeah.
if we had this, we'd be able to use the W, and then the clone would follow us into the fight rather than just been wasted. So it brings back the value of being able to do that again, which helps a bit with jungle in terms of like engages and stuff, like ganks and that.
That would be good for jungle, fair enough, but that would probably push him from top lane to mid lane again,
Mm,
because then you wouldn't be able to pull him to be a durable champion because it's going to turn back into more of a trickster, kind of a Jace, you know. And when the meta turns to tanks or for juggernauts, you're going to play mid lane. It's good. Don't get me wrong. I like
mm,
it. It's just I don't see it functioning that well, at least for how are they pushing Wukong to be. They want him to be a strong diver, somebody like Diana, or Mio, or Irelia, for example, who can get into the fight without you being able to react, and then for him to either stay in the fight up until he kills the priority target, or to do massive damage, like somebody like Renekton, and fight tooth and nail until he makes sure his team gets there to clean up the fight after he dies. You know, somebody like Olaf Renekton. He's kind of a weird combination between Jax, Olaf, Fiora, and Renekton, or Irelia and Renekton. I don't know how to explain it. It's just he's durable but not durable enough. He's mobile but not mobile enough to put him in either one of the categories.
mm.
With your ulti, you can take a 1v3, no problem. If your jungle, if your top lane, two items, Wukong can fight a 1v3 and take two or three of them out while he is probably going to die to somebody else.
Yeah.
But the trade-off is if you were to do that, at least in my opinion, of course, it doesn't, my opinion can be subject to change, or if that's what most people want, that's what I'm gonna get to. I'm gonna have to adapt to. But since I played the stats in Wukong, if they would do this, I don't see that much of a point for him to be a bruiser anymore, like at all, because he would be able to play just like Nico using it. And Nico,
Mm.
he's a burst mage towards an assassin, pretty much. He's a catcher. He would have to play into a catcher assassin type of build, and then you would have to remove the double charge on the ulti. You would have to remove the max health damage, and you would have to add a lot of base stats into his EQ and into his base numbers level 1. So he would be able to play it. Because cutting down on the clone that much would spread out most of the damage that the clone did to his other two abilities, not the ulti. I don't know if it makes sense.
No, I get where you're coming from. Um,
So I see their push is more for him to be a durable fighter, you know, somebody like
yeah.
Renekton who goes in and he either goes hard or goes home in two pieces, probably.
So what do you
That's
think
why I think
about the
go on.
passive instead of having regen has scaling MR, but have the MR at like half the value of armor? So when you're
That would be
sitting,
better.
so when you're sitting with what's the max? So when you've got 54 armor, you've got
You have
say
25 or 27 MR.
yeah something like that.
Yeah. Well, that would be much better. And I don't think it would be much would be that much of a problem mid lane because, well, he wouldn't be an assassin anymore. That was the problem before. The
Yeah,
fact that he was getting so much MR, but he was playing like an assassin. He was a bit too tanky to be an assassin and a bit too little damage to be a fully fledged Zed or I don't know, Kiana, and not mobile enough. But if they were to add that, he would be better in the jungle because he wouldn't be bullied out by an Elise or Evelyn or any AP jungler that has a bit of mobility or one good CC chain.
yeah,
And top lane, he wouldn't have an auto lose matchup because right now Mordekaiser isn't just bad; it's legitimately unplayable. The problem isn't the damage, the shield. My fucking god, how much I can hate that shield. You have no idea. You go in, you think you can do a fight, and then he just pops a 350 shield out of nowhere. Instant cast, by the way. You can't predict when he's gonna shield. And then he ults you. And if you want to have a fighting chance, you either have to wait his shield out so you take damage from his passive, or you have to tank one of his Qs in his ulti, an isolated Q, because you have to use your throw to burst his shield down quick. So it doesn't give you any room to fight him because he does too much damage to you because of the MR nerfs. And now you're gonna lose even more MR because they remove it as well. So yeah, just fuck the Wukong community, I guess.
yeah. It does kind of feel that way right now. um,
So yeah, he has a lot of work to do, but if you were to cut it down, he needs a lot of reverts, not necessarily
yeah.
extra
That's
buffs.
kind of how it feels. I feel like a lot of it's just reverts, and then like E having some sort of scaling. Like
Yeah, E needs to have some sort of
just
scale.
looking at what
Any
I've wrote down, there's like there's pretty much two things that aren't reverts, which is the what I said about the removing regen and having armor on MR on the passive, and the E having AD scaling. Yeah, it feels that way.
well, yeah, that would be much better. At least much healthier for him to have his
Mm.
old kit back. Old kit back. So I'd say mo most of his base stats to have them back, so you would be able to reliably fight Chen.
So I kind of
Or
feel
another thing
like
that they need to do, in my opinion, is make his queue uninterruptible, just like they did with Aatrox. Because it's so frustrating, and I've seen this on any type of Wukong. When you can be a mid lane assassin player or jungle or top lane, doesn't matter. When
yeah,
you queue, you're 90% through the animation, and then when you want to auto attack after you have any type of attack speed buff, your queue gets cancelled. I don't understand why they allow this. If you have more than 50% of the animation going through, you should have a guaranteed hit. But no, it doesn't work that way. It gets cancelled in the most random moments. If you don't see the damage being applied, you can't do something else. And I can't tell you how many times I canceled the queue for an auto and died right after. It's just so frustrating to play against.
yeah,
And
I'll put
Darius
that
Q
down.
doesn't have that. Darius W doesn't have that problem. Aatrox Q doesn't have that problem. Irelia Q into auto attack doesn't have that problem. Hell, even Master Yi has this thing when he
Do you
has an
think
auto attack locked on you.
Do you think that's more of a bug than a natural mechanic in the game?
I think one that is a bug for sure. It's when Queen can cancel your Q if she E's onto you while you apply the damage, and it reverts the damage. That one
Yeah,
happens.
it's
If Queen E's your auto attack is gonna get cancelled. Your Q guaranteed gets cancelled. It's never gonna go through. That one probably is a bug, and it kind of happens the same with the with Gragas body slam. Kind of. It sometimes cancels, sometimes doesn't. I think they need to make it, just like Mordekaiser Q. When he Qs somebody, it locks the animation. So even if you displace him, he still hits you with the ability. Because that way it make him feel less clunky. And another one that probably has happened to you. If you are hit by a CC, any type of CC, a root, a stun, slow, whatever, if you try to use your clone and you double tap the W, it doesn't give you the dash. It puts you one frame forward. I don't know why this happens.
yeah.
If you press
I've
it
had that a
once, it
few
doesn't do that.
times myself. Like
It's
where
an, it's annoying.
yeah, you try to W and then like you just right next to the clone with no movement.
No dash. Yeah, and you
Yeah.
also for some reason it also self roots you for like 0.2 seconds.
So you said about skill expression being needed. What would you suggest for that then?
Well, one of the reasons what I said that I would want him to have combat healing is it would be able to differentiate good Wukong players from great Wukong players. So there would be people who would do the easy fast combo, EQ ulti. You
Mm.
get a bit of healing, you get Thunder Sky proc, you get Eclipse procs, electrocute, whatever. You could also do something like E auto W auto Q, so you would have your passive stacked and you get double the healing from the on hit on the Q, then ulti, then Q again with your massive with your stacks. So that way you would be able to stack your passive, you would learn how to stack your passive, and you would be able to show that you know how to use your kit properly. Combat healing usually does that. Unless you have an on cast shield. That one is just you can't do shit about it. It's a shield. You either press it or you don't. That's why when somebody like Seth, for example, when he uses his W, it has a skill expression because not all of them W when they shoot. They don't W right after R, or they don't double in the middle of the animation of his E. It has skill expression, even though he does a lot of damage. The problem is his Q right now. He just runs you down with his Q. He doesn't need his W anymore. But point is, he has skill expression. Wukong, the only skill expression he has is his W, the
Yeah.
defensive tool. There are many other champions that have their entire kit that shows skill expression. Now, or at least when Wukong was overpowered, the combo was simple: EQ, ulti, WQ, ulti, Q. That was it. You just spam buttons and hope that you press them all in the same order all the time. Now he has a bit more skill expression because he's weaker, but that is not healthy for the champion. You should be
Yeah.
able to have skill expression in his kit, not because he's weak.
Yeah. I agree there.
So that's
So
why I said it's you either give him some AD scaling on his E, so people would be able to max out the build. So if you want to just Q all the time, you don't always need to play with Triforce, or put some on cast healing on his Q, for example. Though, again, the Q thing, I would like it myself, but that's more of a top lane thing. On the
so
jungle, I think skill expression would be better for him if you would give him one cast of his ulti, and if you would give him that W, uh, the Wild
yeah.
Rift W, because you could W out of a bush, and people would think that you're coming to ult them, when in fact you're a bit more behind, waiting for them to use their flash or a defensive build. So, it depends on which player base is the biggest, or what people agree upon, like the community agrees upon.
I think that as much as I'd like that Wild Rift W, realistically, like I think W's in an okay spot compared to the rest of his kit. So
Yeah.
I'd rather see like improvements to the rest of his kit instead before like going after the W. Because like for me, I think the biggest issue right now for the W is the cooldown. Essentially the early
20
game
seconds
cooldown,
is kind of extreme. Yeah,
which is
20
why.
seconds level one is
So when we
tough.
when we first got the rework, it was 20 to 16 seconds. It's now 22 to 14. So I originally suggested reverting it back to 20 to 16 because you're building a lot of ability haste anyway. So it's not going to be 16 seconds. It's going to be less, and then obviously
12 to 10.
yeah, a
That's
bit
pretty
bigger
good.
numbers,
I
like get more value from ability haste than lower numbers, so it can technically work out better. But I think most people just kind of agreed that we should aim for 20 to 14, so we just lose 2 seconds off the early.
Yeah, 20, but we need to think of, how would they want to do it? Because if you would have to add AD scaling, revert his base stats, and and shed off 2 seconds early and 2 seconds late, that would probably put him at a 53% win rate in the jungle and probably 55% win rate in top lane, at least.
But
So
the thing is, we
not all of
can.
them are gonna happen,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
the ideal.
That's the thing. I'd rather have like a large collection of suggestions so that I can go through and go, okay, we can see that working, or we don't want to do that, but we'll try that out. Because if we just come to them with like 2 or 3 suggestions, and then like they only really like one of them, and we get it, yeah, it just it's just better to have more options than less.
Well,
So,
if I were to compile a list, would be revert most of his base stat changes,
yeah,
lock the animation on his Q,
yeah,
fix the W bug, add the
yeah,
AD scaling on his E,
yeah.
and also shed off 2 seconds either early or late game. I really don't care which one. They're both impactful for me because in the jungle it's good to have it later, to have the 2 seconds shaved off late. So when you max it, for top lane it's better to have them early. So it
I
just depends
feel
of
I feel like
how
as
they
a
see it.
jungler, the W is in an okay spot a late game. I'd rather see it shaved off early, just because I know
Well,
I'm
then we
gonna
all
be
can agree
building
upon
like.
early.
Say that again. Sorry.
Yeah, I say that we both of the roles can agree upon early
Yeah.
because for us the problem is early, not late.
I mean, for me, it means that I can have clone up a bit faster when I'm getting to a camp. Because I'm not gonna say it's every camp I've got. the clone available. Like there is some occasions I'll get to a camp
You
and
have
I
it
don't know if
every other camp
yeah.
usually. So
But
yeah,
the
and then the ulti, I think if we were to compile the list, the ulti would be either cut off a bit of the damage and put it in E, or completely rework it or revert it. It's just anything is better than the current ulti that we have because it eats and it cannibalizes Wukong's power budget too much. So any change on the ulti, it's fine for me. Reduce some of the damage, take away one of the charges, and put more power into his base kit. Or the ideal route, as we discussed, would be to put more max HP damage onto it and give it back the old duration. So it would be 20% HP and let's say 200% or 250% AD scaling, and it would have the old radius, so it'd be able to hit more people with it, but it only would have one charge, and the knockup would be 1 second again, so it doesn't feel like you just plop them a bit up and then they fall down and just beat you to death.
okay, so I'll put I've got about the stats. I put about the passive, putting the regen back to 3%, or removing the regen for MR. I put the E getting AD scaling, W getting less cooldown, having the Q reverted, like the Q damage revert. Kit rewarding for skill expression via combat healing added to Q, or AD scaling on E. Q uncancelable. W dash bug not always moving you. R lower damage or remove a charge and move damage to E.
Yeah, that would be it for me. So man, I can't stay any longer because I have something else to do as well. But thanks for the discussion, and we'll see if something gets done.
Well,
Until then, I'm not playing the monkey. I'm playing TFT.
yeah, I'm not playing him either. I think the best bet is to just have people avoid playing him, and so his win rate drops even more and his pick rate, and then
I mean,
hopefully
he
they'll
already
start
has a
listing.
sub 1% pick rate, and he has.
I
I
mean,
think I the only time I can say I really feel bad for you, jungle. Jesus, what did they do to you?
honestly, like I'm not really high elo. I don't really play ranked anymore. I just kind of play for like the skin and then chill in normals. But hey, thank you for the follow. But yeah, I feel like I play in ranked. I play at like a skill level above where I'm ranked, so I feel like I can usually play him quite well for like the elo I'm at. But it definitely feels like he's just lacking so much right now. Like a lot of his
On
power is
every
just coming
on
from the
every
items.
angle from this. Yeah, yeah. If the items wouldn't be overtuned, you wouldn't even be able to play him.
Yeah,
You'd be sub 45% on
yeah,
both roles.
yeah, 100%.
So yeah, thanks man for everything, and
Yeah, no
I'll leave you
worries.
for now.
Thank you for the chat.
Thanks as well, and I'll see you on Reddit.
Yeah, see you later.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Right, good chat there. Got a good bit of information. Sorry about ignoring the chat a bit for it. I'll read through now. So get rid of his double knock up, make it so you knock up one, buff the damage on that. Yeah, I think that's the general consensus. Like it either like reduce the damage overall for the two R charges, and then move some of the damage to the E, or remove it to one charge of the R and then buff the damage slightly. I think what he was saying was right with 20% max HP being the most. It does make sense now that I've heard it, because I thought 24% was quite reasonable, but originally when I thought about it myself, I did think about 20%, but then I was like, well, two charges is 24%, so I want to kind of balance it up, like aim for that. But yeah, 20% sounds good. So the stats, yeah, I think just give us back the MR that we had before the rework. Yeah, sure. Just let me know where you're going, whether you're going in my Discord or the Wukong mains Discord. I'll keep an eye out on the Discords. Yeah, if anyone does alright, cool. If anyone does want to chat or have an input in VC, then just let me know and we can add it in. Hello.
Yo, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Okay, so I'm gonna try not to talk too long. I'll probably just reiterate some things I already said, honestly,
Yeah.
which probably isn't a bad thing because it shows that at least Wukong mains are on the same page, and
Yeah.
so you can feel confident if you do things to right, and be confident that there won't be like any turmoil between like two roles, for example, like top and jungle players. So for context, I've been playing Wukong probably not as long as most people. I started playing him in like beginning of season 13, and I've played him pretty much only jungle. I've played top probably exclusively like twice, but I play him primarily only jungle.
Yeah.
So obviously the first thing that I think I need to talk about, I've talked about forever, which is that double knockup needs to go. Not only is it just obviously kneecapping and pro play because it's a strong utility. Like even if double knockup did 0 damage, they probably still pick it in pro because the utility is just so strong in coordinated team fights. And it keeps them kneecapped.
I think, sorry for interrupting, but I do think as well, even if you do have low damage on the R, like I've been in a few situations in games myself where like I've been behind, but I'm like, fuck it, I've still got the double knockup. Like I'm still able to make plays because of it.
There's been times where I'm behind and we just went like tank Wukong because we had like a Yasuo ADC or something, and I would just set up 4-man, alls for him every fight, and we just won the game off it, right? Even though I didn't have any damage. So I think that regardless of the damage you change on our double knockup, is just it's a broken utility. It's a disgusting utility, and it can't, no numbers tweaks will change just how broken utility is. Couple things too as well with double knockup is, I think removing double knockup increases the skill expression for a couple things. One, there are times where you can go in and completely blunder your first knockup, but it's okay. You have a second one, and you can completely just kind of erase the mistake you made because you still get that second knockup off, and if you blundered it as well. And also another thing, regardless of pro play, double knockup can be toxic to play against. For example, if you're in a mobile squishy, right? For example, if you go on like an ADC and R them, and they flash check it, and they're like, okay, I flashed Wukong R, I can go back in, but you have a second one, and you go on them again, and they're dead, and there's nothing they can do about it, right? Like, I get it, it is your role as a diver to get on the back line, but it can feel very, like, that's why even though Wukong is 47 win rate, 46 people still hate him for that reason, because it's just not very fun to play against it, right? It's not like Jarvan Cage, where Jarvan gets on top of the back line, he R's, but you flash check it, and now Jarvan can't, do anything, he's stuck, and he can't go on you again, right? There's that kind of...
sorry for interrupting again, but I think as well with what you're saying is it opens up the skill expression, because obviously your clone can still knock up people, which then opens up like, yes, you might have missed your knock up. Thank you for the follow. Yes, you've missed your knock up, but like it's making you play more skillful, because you're like, right, I can wait a couple of seconds, quickly like quickly move into position and knock them up with the R off the clone kind of thing, or like try and like pre-plan it early, where like I'm gonna like E into them, W, and then R, so like they're in a position where like if they flash mine, they go into the clone kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. And I like it because it kind of forces you as the Wukong player to like time your engagement, because you're putting all your when you're engaging Wukong with knockup, like with one knockup, you're kind of putting all your chips into one play, and it makes him more high risk kind of character. And I think that's good, because besides that, another Wukong issue is that Wukong is incredibly simple. And while you would think that simple champions would be easier to balance, that's not always the case. We see that with like Annie in pro play this year. For example, if you like overbuff, most simple champions are either like very underplayed, or they're kind of just disgusting. Because the thing about champions, easier champions, is that if you have, for example, let's say that Annie and Azir are on the same like power level, everyone's just going to pick Annie because Annie is easier to play, she's easier to pick up, and she's more consistent in what she does, right? She's more consistent to play. And so Wukong has faced that issue where he's kind of like the a top jungler, or he's really bad because he's just kind of all point and click and auto attacks. And that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with Wukong being a simple champion, but I think that on top of there like being not a lot of skill expression in his R and some other parts of his kit, it leads to him kind of having that issue of he's either bad or he's really strong, depending on what they do to his numbers.
I think as well, with him being a more simple champion, he's like, simple champions usually have like ways you can play around them, whereas like you don't really have that right now into like against Wukong, because he can just like all in you with the double knock up. Whereas, like you said earlier, like removing the second charge or removing the second knock up makes like, it so you're still gonna suffer if he does it, but you can still recover from it if you're good enough, or you can.
Or if you have flash.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's the thing about Wukong. It's very polarizing, right? Because like, Wukong is like, and it feels bad for the Wukong player too, because like obviously it feels bad for like Wukong is polarizing because it's like you either can deal with Wukong's engage or you can't, and if you can't, he kind of just kills you, like 100-0 you, and there's really not a lot you can do. But if you have answers to Wukong's ultimate, there's nothing the Wukong player can really answer back, because he doesn't have anything complex in his kit to allow him to really like outplay it. You know what I'm saying? There's not a lot you can do. Like what is Wukong going to do into LeBlanc, right? He can't ever engage on a LeBlanc because he's just going to get away every single time. But what is a Kai'Sa going to do into a Wukong? Nothing, right? She's just going to get 100-0 and knocked up, whether she flashes or not, right?
Might be able to R away at some point if she's lucky with a missile or something. Lucky. But I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, and then so I could I could go on double knock all day, but also. I do agree. WC needs to go down. Not only, again, I don't play lane Wukong, but I do realize that in lane it would allow you to trade a little bit more, because right now having to wait 22 seconds just to do a trade in lane is a very long time. Especially if they have D shield, they just get all their health back from the trade you did by the time you get W back.
With D shield and the regen resolve rune as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, it would help us jungle because it allows you to, one, have more gank uptime because you can hop through walls. And that also allows you to just traverse your jungle and jump over like your own buff walls to get to your camps faster. But also allow you to invade a lot more because you could jump over like the enemy buff walls and things like that. So it would just overall make him better in lane trading and allow him to gank and traverse the jungle better. So, and in 22 seconds for like, it is an overload, like W is overloaded. Like it is an overload ability, but 22 seconds is a long cooldown. I think it's a bit too long.
The thing is, like, I know I say it's an overloaded ability because it is, but it's like, it's not overloaded in the sense that like you use it and it's giving you all its value in one go. Like it's either an engage or a disengage or an attack steroid. It's not like all three in like one activation kind of thing. If you get what I mean.
It does a lot of things, but it really can only do one thing at once.
Yeah.
But it is it's a very flexible ability. It can be used for pretty much every scenario, but only for that one scenario given at the time that you need it for.
Yeah.
I agree. Trying to think what else. Yeah, I mean E giving AD. I don't know why this is even the thing about the E is that let's do a couple things. One, it gives him more damage on different ability, and two, it would help his clear because he has a really slow clear right now because you build AD, and it would help him clear things like chickens and void grubs and krugs and like that. Because clearing chickens with Wukong right now is so pain. Like that first clear.
I do want to say, sorry for interrupting again. I do want to say with the jungle pet changes that has helped slightly just because the pet's outputting more, but his E doing a bit more damage would be nice on the camps.
Yeah, because like when you're playing like a Graves or something, it's like Graves is just full clearing at like fucking 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I swear to God that character does. And so you're just like you can never keep up with Graves, or a lot of other characters really, because your clear is slow, like purposefully gutted. So it would help. Of course, it would help him have more damage on ganks and engages, but also it would help fix his clear problem as well, especially on like things like chickens and Krugs and void grubs. Now that's a new thing. It'll help him a lot with that.
Yeah, definitely. So the only kind of concern I've got with the E getting scaling, obviously, like it's something that would be nice, but with how problematic monster bonus damage was, do you think it would be kind of the same issue?
If it did become a problem where like you think like Wukong would like clear too fast, is that your concern?
Yeah.
Then you could just make, I don't know, could you you could possibly make it where the E-AD ratio like only scales and affects like champions if you're worried. So it really only uses damage against champions or something like that. Something very specific in that situation. Or you could make it where the bonus 80 scaling on the E caps at a certain point against monsters, for example. And it wouldn't go like past a certain percentage against monsters. Something like that.
Because obviously I've put 20 to 30% bonus AD scaling. And just looking at the patch, I think it wasn't like, because we had 120% anyway.
Correct.
In the early, like when the first originally added it, I believe, and then they upped it twice, didn't they? So I think when it was like 120%, it wasn't that bad. Like it wasn't problematic. It was more. No, it was 150% bonus. Yeah, so it went 150, then it went 180 for some reason, and then it went 160, and then 120, and then 0. So I think 20% scaling is probably gonna be a healthy amount.
I agree. It also it'd be, you don't want to be too high because it'd be kind of rough. Like if I'm like Assassin Wukong, you just dash on like an ADC with your point and click E, and it's just like all their HP, already if it was too high. I think 20% is like I think it's a perfectly reasonable number. It speeds his clear up and gives him a bit more damage on his engage without being like ridiculously overbearing and feeling like too one-shotty.
I just changed it slightly, so instead of 20 to 30%, I just put 20 to 25%, just in case they want to be a bit generous.
That's good. And for double knockup, I know I want it gone, and then I think personally, I would put it back to the just 4 seconds it was at, or if you really wanted to, if they really put a lot of damage back into like E and Q and W, I wouldn't mind it going to like 3 seconds if they distribute the power budget properly, or something like that. That'd be fine. But I don't know what they just make it one. I just want to make it one charge. I don't care what they do with this number as long as they disperse it properly. I really just want one charge. Or one thing you could do, this may be a bit too over, maybe a bit too much, but I would not be inclined to make it like 3 seconds, but you're allowed to, it's maybe a bit too much actually now I think about it, but just suggest maybe like when you're making 3 seconds, when you're R-ing, maybe you can use your E while you're R-ing, so you could like, dash while you're still spinning for a gap closer, something like that. I don't know, just to give him a bit more mobility while he's spinning. Because when you E or W and you're R right now, it cancels it, right? And you just do the animation of what you're doing. So if you want to make it like 3 seconds and allow him to dash while he's R-ing, maybe it too much, maybe a bit too like ridiculous, but I don't know.
I think it might be a bit
a bit too ridiculous.
Because it kind of gives you the same output as missing your first R and then just following up with the second one on someone that's flashed.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, but I think just one charge, 4 seconds. I'd have to sit down and like type up all the numbers. I mean, you're doing that for us, and I appreciate that. But I just think one charge, 4 seconds is just a much healthier state for the character overall. because a lot of these problems have and I mean, obviously, like, this isn't all like the rework's fault. I mean, over the years they've just like, I don't know if someone outright this is like a double knockup fetish, because they've just put all this power into, like, if you look at the patch notes, it's like a bunch of nerfs, and then every buff is just to be buffed to Cyclone, and it's like they want the character to be a double knockup bot, and like
that's incorrect. We got that very important mana buff as well.
my fault. How could I forget? I remember that character is so viable. But and I get it. Okay, I think Wukong's niche being like this really good team fighter is cool. Yeah. But like, cool, he's a good team fighter, but like he can't do anything else. You know, like
that's the problem.
You can't fight anyone with ult down. Like, and I know Trinity Force is really popular on Wukong, but I personally don't like it because it's like attack speed is. I don't want to say it's a useless stat, but like you just don't do enough damage without your R. That it doesn't feel worth doing it.
I kind of feel with the rework, they tried to move him more towards being like an on-hit bruiser. So building like Blade of the Ruined King, stuff like that. But like, I've tried it in games, right, and it does work to a degree, like taking press the attack, stuff like that. But you're also like, you've still got the same issues that he has anyway, plus more. So it's just like, I don't know. I feel like that's what they were trying to aim for, and then just kind of like ruined it in the process.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, I don't know. I miss Divine so much, but
I think we all
do. It was actually just it kept that character afloat. And Sundered Sky. I mean, Sundered Sky doesn't give you haste, and then it also doesn't have Sheen on it, you know, and that's just like it's such a big hit. Like I
brought that up to. Sorry to interrupting again. I brought it up to August when I was in his stream last, because I said, like, obviously we've people that are like heavily reliant on Divine and building a Sheen item only really have one option now. In Wukong's case, it's Trinity. So why wasn't Sundered Sky? Because you could keep the effect that Sundered Sky's got, but just make it a Sheen item. And the feedback I basically got was just, why do you need to like having like alternatives to Sheen to Trinity isn't necessarily a required thing. It's not necessary for champions. Thank you for the follow. So yeah, to them, I think they're just happy leaving it as it is. But I think to me, it makes sense making if it was a Sheen item, it would.
Because
it'd be
I don't know.
Wukong doesn't. I think
Wukong just doesn't have a good substitute for Divine, and I know August and I think Riot Flock says as well, which they were like, oh, but like. I talked about Wukong all the time. I feel bad because I kind of nagged them about it, but you know, they haven't done anything with the character, so you know, what else am I supposed to do, right? But they're kind of like, oh, you know, I guarantee you, Wukong's winner will be better when he can build Trinity because it's just better mythic, and I'm like, it's this better item, like it's just not, because attack speed is just kind of a useless style in the character, and he's in the Divine passive for the sustain and the percent HP damage, which is so good on his Q, and it kept you alive in fights, allows you to pump out a lot of damage, and now you have this item that just has a worse passive, and then you know. Also gives you, you know, it gives you a pretty much useless stat that doesn't do anything for your character. So I don't know. If they don't give Sundered Sky Sheen, then they need to like. I think they definitely need to buff his Q, you know, because he's missing a lot of damage that Divine gave him on his Q. Because the items he has now just doesn't give you enough.
I think reverting the Q nerf is enough for Q though. If we're looking at like getting AD scaling on E, I think that's more than enough for Q.
I agree. Yes, 100%.
Because to me, I never understood why they actually nerfed the Q to begin with. Because it wasn't like it was doing a lot of damage. It was just a reasonable amount. Most of your damage was coming from the Divine that was OP at the time.
It's not like it was like second Camille Q that's doing like, you know, like that was doing like half your HP and shit, you know, back, you know, like last season stuff.
It's true damage, it's fair.
Yeah. True.
She's got to wait one whole second before she hits you again.
That's really all I have to say. Just I'm a big double knockup hater. That's just as you can probably tell. I hate it. And then of course and then I agree with pretty much every suggestion you have on here. That's all I have to say. If you have any questions to ask me, you can ask me. If not, then that's probably like all I have to add to it all.
What about? So what's your opinion on Assassin Wukong then? Like, if
I think
it
it's bad for
were,
the game.
yeah,
I think it's
okay.
bad for the game.
Because I think, so even though, like, personally, I think a lot of us enjoyed playing it back in the day.
It's like I still play it. It's not as good as it was back then.
Yeah.
I still play it, and it's
Yeah, I
fun.
play it from
But
time
like
to
I
time as
do
well.
things where it's like I just like dash into Q and they just die, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that probably wasn't very fun and very interactive when you get double gap close into a Q and you're just kind of dead, right? And Wukong is a diver, so I think he should fulfill the kind of like, I don't want to keep comparing him to like Jarvan, but they kind of fill similar role. But like the kind of like you build like bruiser items and you kind of like are you kind of stack HP items and you kind of go in with your utility and you still do good damage, right? But it's you're more there to kind of like soak cooldowns and be a bruiser and use your utility, that kind of thing, while still being able to 1v1 people, but not like double gap close EQ dead, like Lethality Wukong can be.
Yeah. So
I think it's kind of toxic.
My only concern with us pushing for AD scaling on E is it might start promoting
Lethality
I don't know.
Wukong.
Yeah, I don't know though, because it's still technically magical damage, isn't it? So it wouldn't get as much value from lethality. Like obviously
Yeah.
you'd get value from the scaling, but from the actual damage output, it would be AP magical.
That is a worry, but I think if you keep it at like 20% AD, it won't be like, even if you built like full lethality, right? It still wouldn't be that big of an issue. And plus, when you build full lethality like that, you're gonna be super squishy. So he still faces the issue of like he can get one shotted, right? Because it's not like his damage is so overbearing on the scaling that like he just one shots you and you can't do anything. You'll still have a chance to fight back because the scaling isn't super high and he'll be squishy.
I mean, so let's say you've got Wukong usually has about 300 AD right at the end of a game, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So it's 60 extra AD. Let's say if you went lethality, you'd probably have closer to 400, so it's 80. So it's not even that huge amount,
really,
to be honest. Considering the E has had a nerf as well, because the E used to be, I think it was 260 or 280 at the last level, and they made it 200 for some reason. Let me see. 250. Oh no, wrong one. Where is it? I'm sure they buffed it after that though. Let me see. Yeah, no, that's not it. I don't know. I saw it somewhere that it was like 250 or something on the damage. I don't know. But yeah, they took like 60 damage off it, so essentially all you're doing is adding the late game damage back on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it wouldn't be too bad actually.
Mm-hmm. But overall, I appreciate what you're doing. Will they listen to us? Who knows?
Who knows?
But it's worth a shot better than just like sitting and doing nothing.
Yeah, I think for me it's kind of like I've seen freaks sitting there saying like he doesn't want people just saying, oh, my champion sucks, need more damage, not winning enough, like simple things. They want actual constructive feedback. So I think getting the community to come together and actually try to like formulate something, it might not be red, but at least we've tried. At least we've tried to do something. That's the best we can do.
And what's cool, what's crazy too is that in Freaks 13.13 patch run down about 6 months ago, I think that's when Wukong received the monster mod nerf. Yeah. He even mentioned that Wukong is not good in solo queue and that they should do some patchwork to make Wukong viable in jungle and solo queue. And that's like 7 months ago now.
Yeah.
And Divine is gone, and we haven't heard we
I
haven't
think
gotten any changes. We
that's
haven't
when
gotten
we
any
got our
things
massive
done.
Madden buff, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like 2 patches later, because I think I went into Riot Fox's like chat, and I was like, "Can you buff Wukong? Like, can you do something for Wukong?" He's like, "Well, like I can't. I can give him like mana buffs," and then like 2 patches later he got mana buffs. So like I don't know. I get they're scared of him being like a pro play pick or whatever, but like when you mention that you'll do patchwork to get him out of pro play, and it's been 7 months now, and nothing's been done. Like they did something for Cassante, they did something for Azir, right? But they haven't done anything for like Wukong, and it feels really shit to kind of be like thrown to the curb, So
And now they're giving Briar AP scaling, so she's
Yep.
gonna be a one shot with an E.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, man, I gotta head out.
Yeah, no
I
worries.
appreciate you talking, and I
Yeah, no
appreciate you doing this to the community. I'll see you around.
Yeah, take it easy, man. Take it easy.
You-
Right. Does anyone else want to jump in and kind of discuss their ideas? It's up to you. If not, I'm pretty happy with what we've kind of discussed, and what I'll do is I'll write this up a bit neater, and post it onto Reddit for people and in the Discord for people to have a look at. And if everyone's happy, then I'll look to start trying to reach out to Riot members in hopes that they'll read it, and we'll see what we can do. Let me just read in case anyone else is trying to join. Okay. Yeah, I think everyone's pretty happy, aren't they? Right. In that case, I would play some games, but I wasn't really planning on streaming today. I just kind of wanted to jump on and do this, as I've got to that point now where I'm fed up of Riot not doing anything. So I'm gonna look for someone to raid, and we'll call it there. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's stopped by, had their input. It's been good to listen to people. It's been good to see that people are kind of agreeing on similar things. Ad break. But yeah, it's nice to see that the community's kind of like grouping together to like pinpoint the issues and whatnot. Hopefully, after this, we'll get some feedback from Riot. Hopefully, I doubt it, but you never know. Let's see who's streaming. I'll just send you to someone playing League so you can go watch them if you want. Let's see. Stu. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do you. Clone's about to start. Oh, okay. I'll clone the creator. Yeah, I'll just send it over to clone then if he's gonna start soon. Monkey, exactly. Yeah, if clone's gonna start, I'll just raid clone then. Send everyone over. Yeah, what? So, like I said, I'll write this down in more detail, and um, I honestly I don't know how I'm gonna get it to Riot. I'm probably gonna try and DM various rioters, um, try and catch them in stream. Um, I don't know. Maybe post it on the Reddit. I really don't know how to get through to them these days. I've tried everything, but at least now we've got a list we can send them of our overall concerns. And hopefully we'll get something back off them. All right, no worries. Just let me know when you've started, and I'll give you a quick raid. Yeah, I'll try what I can. Um, I'm hoping eventually they'll look. Um, it's gonna be tough. I ain't gonna lie, but I'll do what I can, man. Because it's 7 months ongoing now, and we've seen nothing. Sorry, we saw the mana buff that did nothing for us. It's like they clearly don't know what they want to do with him, but they also don't really seem to want to ask. So hopefully, just throwing this list together and putting it towards them, hopefully they'll be like taking some of it on board. Most of, like, it's not even that complex though, the list, to be honest. Most of it is just rework, reverts of nerf stuff done that weren't really needed. And then obviously the E having AD scaling. Um so yeah. I don't know. Hopefully we'll get something out of it. I mean, the easiest thing they can do is just throw Wild Rift Wukong at us, but I don't think that would happen anytime soon. All right, sweet, sweet. Yeah. Right. Thank you everyone for stopping by. Thank you for the follows. Thank you for the discussion. Um, as nice as nice as it was, in the nicest way possible. I hope we don't have to have a discussion like this again. I hope they actually listen to us. Um, yeah, I I just hope we don't have to do this again. Because of them leaving him in such a dire state. But it's been really good chatting to you all, and I'll do what I can with this list, and hopefully we'll see some results in the near future. But yeah, let's start the raid. Right, I'm gonna have some dessert and relax and probably play some Valorant. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and I'll catch you Friday if you want to catch me streaming. Bye bye.
About to make a difference in low elo today.